Chapter 347. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. No. I won't listen. No. Over my dead body. In the bedchamber of Rancho Palace, Empress Dowager Zhuang rejected Gu Jiao's suggestion without hesitation. There was no room for negotiation. Gu Jiao made a strange sound. She had known her great-aunt for a long time, but this was the first time she had been rejected so thoroughly. In fact, she didn't do anything. She just conveyed her son-in-law's words and asked her to temporarily put aside her prejudice and cooperate with the emperor to lure out the mastermind. But it seemed that her great-aunt was not satisfied with her son-in-law's suggestion. Eat 3 more candied plums a day? Gu Jiao threw a sugar-coated bullet. Empress Dowager Zhuang was unmoved. 4. 5. Gu Jiao measured her 5 fingers. Empress Dowager Zhuang defended her position. She didn't want to give Gu Jiao a chance to break her defense line with a sugar-coated bullet. She went to the study without looking back. Alas! Gu Jiao sighed. Gu Jiao walked out slowly. She came to the courtyard of the front hall and sat on the lonely swing. When little Jing Kong was here, this place was as quiet as when he was gone. The night in July was not very cool. It was still hot, but because of the continuous rain, it was not as stuffy as before. Gu Jiao sat on the swing and swung it in boredom. She sighed again and again. Eunuch Qin walked over with a horsetail whisk. Miss Gu. Gu Jiao tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and stopped the swing that was swinging around. Eunuch Qin. She greeted. Eunuch Qin stood by the swing and looked at Gu Jiao, then looked at the boundless night sky. In his mind, he recalled the first time he met Gu Jiao. He thought of her as a little girl who didn't know the rules and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. After interacting with her for a while, he realized how wrong he was. How was this girl not understanding the rules and not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth? She was clearly trampling on the rules and poking a hole in the sky. She had a calmness that didn't belong to girls her age, and she also had the innocence of a child that girls her age had long abandoned. She didn't have so many tricks up her sleeve, nor did she have so many worldly burdens. If she wanted to treat someone well, she would do it from the bottom of her heart, regardless of the cost, without any reservations or doubts. No matter if that person is good or evil. She had her own beliefs, and they were incomparably firm. No one could easily shake her. For some reason, her thin and small body seemed to contain endless power. It was a power that made people feel at ease, and also a power that made people want to get close to her. Eunuch Qin would occasionally think that if His Majesty had been as firm and convinced as Miss Gu, he would not have ended up like this with the Empress Dowager today. His Majesty was very clingy when he was young. He was very clingy to the Empress Dowager, even more so than Princess Ning and... As Eunuch Qin spoke, he seemed to recall something interesting and laughed. This old servant remembers one time. The Empress Dowager brought a young master from the Zhuang family here. That young master didn't know the way and was frightened by noble consort Lu's dog. The Empress Dowager didn't want to hold him, so she casually held his hand. Who knew that His Majesty would get jealous because of this? He wouldn't eat properly at night and wouldn't sleep well at night. He would lie in bed and throw a tantrum, but he wouldn't say what was wrong with him. Old concubine Jing asked him if he was feeling unwell. He didn't say anything. Princess Ning also asked him, but he just sulked and didn't say anything. Gu Jiao's expression was indescribable. Even little Jing Kong wasn't so childish. Then, what happened next? Gu Jiao asked. Eunuch Qin recalled with a smile. Later, old concubine Jing sent him to the Empress Dowager's palace, which is the Chenkuan Palace where Empress Xiao lives now. His Majesty climbed into the Empress Dowager's bed and slept with her for a night. The next day, he was alive and kicking. Gu Jiao curled her lips. So childish. Gu Jiao asked, how old was His Majesty then? Eunuch Qin thought for a moment. about 7 or 8 years old. This old servant doesn't remember the details. He was a little younger than the 7th prince now, and not as fat as the 7th prince. Although His Majesty is tall now, he was as thin as a monkey when he was 7 years old. He looked only 5 years old when he was 7 years old. The Empress Dowager once thought that His Majesty wouldn't be tall in the future. He was about the same as little Jing Kong. It seemed that she didn't have to worry too much about the height of little Jing Kong. Some people did grow up against the wind when they grew up. And then, Gu Jiao felt that this story was quite interesting. Eunuch Qin sighed. Later, His Majesty and the Empress Dowager slowly drifted apart for some reason. This old servant doesn't know when it started. In short, their relationship became more and more strained. Princess Ning was caught in a dilemma. After His Majesty ascended the throne, the Empress Dowager held court behind the curtain and sent old concubine Jing to the nunnery. The relationship between the two was completely broken. It sounded quite sad. Gu Jiao couldn't understand complicated emotions, but she put herself in the shoes of little Jing Kong. If one day, little Jing Kong abandoned her for another person, she would be very sad, very sad. Emotions were the most wonderful thing in the world. It had nothing to do with blood. It was just that once you became a family, you couldn't lose this person. Was it the same for Grand Aunt and old concubine Jing? Gu Jiao asked. Eunuch Qin nodded. The Empress Dowager used to treat old concubine Jing as a friend. But who didn't make a mistake in their youth? The enemy's attack wasn't scary, but the betrayal from the person you trusted the most was the real pain. Gu Jiao paused and asked, even someone as smart as Grand Aunt couldn't take His Majesty back from that person? Eunuch Qin shook his head helplessly. It's not that she couldn't. She just didn't want to think of a way. Once her heart was cold, nothing mattered. There's no greater sorrow than a dead heart? Gu Jiao looked at Eunuch Qin and asked. Eunuch Qin nodded. That's right. Gu Jiao had probably experienced this feeling before, but she couldn't remember it. Her childhood memories of being abandoned by her parents had long been reduced to a few voices and images. She could calmly look at them without feeling any pain. This was called numbness. She became numb when she was very young. That was why she could become an agent of the organization and the most cold-blooded killer. Empress Dowager Zhuang only experienced this when she was middle-aged. She couldn't be completely numb. She could only try to let her heart die. She was Zhuang Jin's, the most powerful Empress Dowager in the Zhao Kingdom. She had her own pride. When she was the Empress, she didn't even bother to compete with the harem for favor. How could she compete with concubine Jing for a man now? Even if that man was her adopted son. Gu Jiao understood. She held the rope of the swing and looked at Eunuch Qin. I understand. Thank you, Eunuch Qin. She wouldn't force her grand aunt to do something she didn't want to do. Since her grand aunt's method didn't work, she would think of something else. Eunuch Qin was secretly pleased. She was such a sensible child. Not only did the Empress Dowager love her, but even he couldn't help but want to love her. Unfortunately, he was a eunuch and didn't have much ability to love her. Gu Jiao got up from the swing and went to Empress Dowager Zhuang's study. Empress Dowager Zhuang was furious when she read the memorials. One of her subordinates was caught cheating again. She wasn't a monarch who used people based on their ability. After so many years in the harem and the imperial court, she deeply understood that there were no fish in the clear water. She had always valued a person's ability. She used people's strengths and tolerated their shortcomings. This didn't mean that her subordinates could do whatever they wanted. There was a limit to everything. They couldn't really kill people or set fires, and they couldn't unscrupulously take advantage of people to satisfy their desires. There was a limit to everything. She wouldn't condone or cover up for anyone who crossed the line. 1 million taels of relief money. You embezzled 950,000 taels of relief money and were caught. If I don't kill you, who should I kill? Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted and threw the memorials into the pile on her left. These were memorials that could be presented to the emperor. With the emperor's temper, he would definitely deal with this matter strictly. Grand Aunt. A round head poked in. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Empress Dowager Zhuang responded indifferently, "What do you want?" Gu Jiao said, "It's getting late. I'll go back first. You should rest early." Then, she gently closed the door for her grandaunt. "Wait." Empress Dowager Zhuang called her indifferently. Gu Jiao pushed the door open again. She rolled her eyes and stepped over the threshold. Her phoenix eyes stared at Empress Dowager Zhuang without blinking. Empress Dowager Zhuang took a memorial and said casually, "Does what I said just now still count?" "Which sentence?" Gu Jiao asked. Empress Dowager Zhuang cleared her throat. "It's the sentence of 5. Gu Jiao reached out her hand and looked at her 5 fingers. Then, she looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang with bright eyes. "It counts. But, you don't want to, do you?" Empress Dowager Zhuang angrily threw the memorial in her heart. A successful Empress Dowager couldn't go against candied plum. Empress Dowager Zhuang said coldly, "It counts from today." "Okay." Gu Jiao did not hesitate. Coincidentally, her purse was filled with new candied fruits. She took out the candied fruit box, counted 5 of them, and put them in the candied fruit box. The rest were all stuffed into her mouth. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang took a deep breath and suppressed her tumbling heart. "Isn't it 8? How come there are only 5? Originally, there were 3 a day. If she said there were 5 more, wouldn't it be 8? She just resisted today and didn't eat a single one." Gu Jiao's mouth was full of candied plums. She said vaguely, "It's 5. If you don't believe me, think again." Empress Dowager Zhuang recalled her original words in her mind. "Eat 3 candied plums every day?" She didn't agree at that time. Then this girl said, 4? 5? She didn't add the words, "eat more," in the last 2 sentences. Empress Dowager Zhuang punched the memorial. She was too careless. Gu Jiao was very gentle to her grandaunt. She respected her grandaunt's opinion and told her the truth. She didn't hide anything from her grandaunt. The emperor didn't have this kind of treatment. The old chancellor dug one pit after another, making the emperor fall into the pit and unable to get out. However, the emperor obviously had strong resistance to the cooperation with Empress Dowager Zhuang. "I can do other things, but not this. I don't want to be in cahoots with that vicious woman." The old chancellor said earnestly, "Your Majesty, now is not the time to throw tantrums. It's more important to find out the real culprit behind the scenes. Is your face more important or the life of the old imperial concubine more important? And Jiao Jiao's life? Let's not talk about Jiao Jiao's life. Anyway, she's not related to you." Listen, what kind of nonsense is this? How is the little magic doctor not related to me? So in the whole world, only Zhuang Jin's, that vicious woman, would love her, and I would ignore her? I misspoke. The old chancellor apologized embarrassedly. What I mean is that Jiao Jiao can at least protect herself. The old imperial concubine was persecuted by noble consort Lu in her early years and has old injuries. If the assassin tries to kill the old imperial concubine again, it will be hard to guard against. This was what the old imperial concubine Jing and her servant said. The old imperial concubine Jing had old injuries and was very weak. The emperor was finally convinced. So in the morning court the next day, there was a scene that made the civil and military officials drop their jaws. The emperor went to the throne room with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Didn't they dislike each other even when they appeared in the same courtyard? Why did they come to court 2 hours earlier today? In the past, either Empress Dowager Zhuang or the emperor arrived first. In short, they didn't see each other face to face. When the two came to the door of the throne room, the emperor stopped and smiled at Empress Dowager Zhuang. He made a gesture of invitation and said, "Mother, please." Empress Dowager Zhuang was so shocked that she almost picked up the sole of her shoe and hit him in the head. Empress Dowager Zhuang tried her best to restrain herself. She nodded and stepped over the threshold calmly. The civil and military officials knelt on both sides of the room with ceremonial tablets in their hands. Empress Dowager Zhuang walked over first. When she was about to go up the steps, Eunuch Qin cleared his throat. Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth twitched. She stopped and reached out her hand. This time, it was the emperor who wanted to pick up the sole of his shoe and hit himself. Was there such a thing? He didn't say anything about Hua. The emperor held back the twitching in his heart and held Empress Dowager Zhuang's wrist. The mother and son went up the steps and sat in their respective seats. They wiped their hands on their clothes without a trace. Emperor. Disgusted. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Oh, who isn't? Today's morning court was very harmonious. The emperor punished a minister in Empress Dowager Zhuang's camp. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't stop him. Instead, she praised the emperor for doing a good job. Empress Dowager Zhuang said with concern that the emperor's body seemed to be thinner than before. She said that he should take care of his body and not let state affairs affect his health. Mother, you are right. I will remember it, the emperor said respectfully in the direction of the bead curtain. The civil and military officials wondered if they were blind or deaf. They could actually see the emperor and the empress dowager reconcile in their lifetime. Were they crazy, or were they crazy? The news was so shocking that the officials of the two factions who were supposed to be fighting to the death became silent. It wasn't enough to let the civil and military officials see it. They had to let everyone in the harem know. Therefore, after the court, the mother and son went to the imperial garden together. They talked and laughed along the way. Your Majesty, it's time to laugh, Eunuch Wei reminded. The emperor clenched his fists and laughed soullessly. Ha ha ha. Empress Dowager, it's your turn, Eunuch Qin reminded. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes and put on a fake smile. Ha ha. In less than a day, everyone in the 6 palaces heard that the two had buried the hatchet. Empress Xiao was the first to go to Pure Hua Palace to inquire, Your Majesty, I heard that you and the Empress Dowager. Halfway through her words, she saw the person sitting next to the emperor and bowed. Imperial Concubine Dowager. Imperial Concubine Jing smiled slightly. Empress, come and sit. Yes. In fact, with Empress Zhao's status, there was no need for her to bow to an imperial concubine. However, the emperor regarded her as his mother, so Empress Xiao could only be a filial daughter-in-law. Empress Xiao sat down on the other side of Imperial Concubine Jing. Imperial Concubine Jing smiled and asked, What did you want to ask Your Majesty? Empress Xiao looked at the two, hesitated, and said, I heard something about Your Majesty and the Empress Dowager. I don't know if it's true, so I asked. The emperor said in a magnanimous tone, Since you both know, I don't need to say anything more. Empress Xiao couldn't hide her surprise. So it's true? Why? It was indeed strange for two people who had been fighting for decades to bury the hatchet. In order not to arouse suspicion, the old chancellor found a flawless excuse for the two's reconciliation. The emperor had a good memory and didn't forget the words. He said, Empress, do you still remember when Xiao Hang was poisoned near Ranshou Palace? Empress Zhao's eyes turned cold. Of course I remember. Xiao Hang was her brother's son of the first wife and was her most beloved nephew. He was nearly poisoned to death. She would never forget this grudge for the rest of her life. The emperor said, The culprit has been found. It wasn't ordered by the Empress Dowager. There's someone else behind the scenes. We have misunderstood the Empress Dowager all these years and caused the Empress Dowager to suffer an unjust injustice. We are truly ashamed. He really found it hard to say the last few words, but the old chancellor said that these were the lines of the soul. If he didn't say it, it wouldn't be enough to convince people. He seriously suspected that the old chancellor was using his position for personal gain. What? There's someone else? Who? Empress Zhao's soul asked 3 times in a row. Imperial concubine Jing lowered her eyes, picked up her teacup, and quietly took a sip. The emperor said, The person who poisoned A Heng is called Zhang Xiu. He once worked in the Shang Palace Bureau and can be considered one of our people. Empress Xiao, Your Majesty, the emperor sighed with self-blame, we also didn't expect her to do such a thing. It was our oversight. A few days ago, she suddenly committed suicide by hanging herself. An old friend of hers took away the things she left behind. Only a few days ago did that old friend discover the secret from the things she left behind. Empress Xiao directly stood up. Your Majesty, this concubine doesn't believe it. The old chancellor did not tell the emperor that Zhang Xiu really was the culprit. He used it as an excuse for the emperor to hear. The emperor thought that what he said was false. Empress Xiao also thought that the emperor had been deceived by someone. None of this was important. What was important was that the person who ordered Zhang Xiu would understand that this matter was true. As long as she believed it, that was enough. Digression. Thank you everyone. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826465539. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 348. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are available here. At the same time, noble consort Zhuang also asked Empress Dowager Zhuang of Ranshou Palace. She beamed with joy and said, "Aunt, you did this, right? I knew you had the ability to deceive His Majesty. Aunt's move is called winning by surprise." Grand Consort Jing thought she could make things difficult for Aunt by moving back to the palace, but she didn't expect Aunt to be so skillful. She used a few tricks to bury the hatchet with His Majesty. Speaking of which, why didn't Aunt do this earlier? Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at her expressionlessly. Noble Consort Zhuang's heart skipped a beat. She shrunk her neck and said embarrassedly, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? Everyone in the palace is saying that the culprit who poisoned Xiao Hang has been found. It's Zhang Xiu. How did Aunt think of making Zhang Xiu the scapegoat? Zhang Xiu is His Majesty's person, so Aunt naturally can't order her around. This suspicion has been washed clean." "Are you done?" Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, "I want to see the memorial." Noble Consort Zhuang pursed her lips and bowed before leaving. The news of Zhang Xiu poisoning Xiao Hang spread like wildfire. Soon, the 6 palaces all knew the truth behind Xiao Heng's death. The emperor had misunderstood Empress Dowager Zhuang for many years. Now that the truth was out, it was reasonable that he would take the initiative to reconcile with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Of course, some people thought that the emperor was using Zhang Xiu to express his guilt and filial piety to Empress Dowager Zhuang. In reality, he was trying to get close to Empress Dowager Zhuang to gain her trust so that he could catch her off guard in the future. Empress Xiao sat in Pure Flower's palace for a while before returning to Cunning Palace to take care of Qin Chuyu. The emperor looked at Grand Consort Jing. "How is mother's injury?" Grand Consort Jing smiled and said gently, "It's not a big deal." The emperor's expression didn't relax at all. He said seriously, "The imperial doctor said that mother still needs to recuperate carefully and apply medicine every day. Granny Kai, take good care of mother." "Yes," Granny Kai replied respectfully. The emperor made a sound of acknowledgement, then said to Grand Concubine Jing, "Then this son will go to the imperial study first. If imperial mother feels bored in Pure Flower's palace, then you can take the sedan chair to the imperial garden for a walk. The imperial physician said that staying cooped up in the room is not good for recovery. There's no need to worry about me, Your Majesty. I'm fine with the protection of Your Majesty's dragon Qi." "But Your Majesty..." Grand Concubine Jing's gaze fell on his haggard brow as she spoke. Your Majesty looks tired. Did you stay up all night to review memorials again? The Emperor smiled carelessly and said, Recently, many areas have been hit by heavy rain. The disaster situation is serious, so it's inevitable that there will be more reports. Grand Concubine Jing took his hand and reminded him seriously, Even so, you have to take care of your body. The Emperor patted the old concubine's hand and smiled. I'll be careful. Grand Concubine Jing's expression cleared up a bit. She thought of something and asked, Are you using the calming incense that Kai Mama gave you? Yes, the Emperor said. Is it still useful? Grand Concubine Jing asked. The Emperor smiled. The incense personally made by Imperial Mother is naturally useful. The Emperor comforted Grand Concubine Jing a bit more before leaving for the Imperial study. He didn't come to eat lunch with Grand Concubine Jing, so he ate in the Imperial study instead. Eunuch Wei went to the Imperial kitchen and ordered the cooks to make a few delicious dishes. The Emperor used to talk about extravagance when eating, but ever since he stayed in Jadewater Alley, he had simplified his meals quite a bit. Eunuch Wei came out of the Imperial study and returned to Pure Flower's palace to pick up the memorials he had left in the study last night. When he came out of the study, he ran into Grand Concubine Jing and Kai Mama who were walking toward him. Esteemed Imperial Concubine. Eunuch Wei bowed with the memorials in his arms. Kai Mama bowed slightly to him. He also bowed slightly. In terms of rank, he was above Kai Mama, but the Imperial Palace wasn't a place where rank was the only thing that mattered. The Emperor respected Grand Concubine Jing, and when she achieved the Tao, even the chickens and dogs would rise to the heavens. Grand Concubine Jing looked at him with a gentle gaze. Eunuch Wei, how many years have you served His Majesty? Eunuch Wei didn't think for too long and quickly replied, This servant has served His Majesty since he was 14 years old. It's been 30 years since then. Grand Concubine Jing nodded. Do you still remember who chose you to serve His Majesty? Eunuch Wei was startled. He didn't understand why Grand Concubine Jing would suddenly ask this, but he answered truthfully, it was esteemed Imperial Concubine. Grand Concubine Jing stared at him. Then can I trust you? She used this concubine. Eunuch Wei's expression turned serious. He hugged the memorials tightly with one hand and lifted the hem of his robe with the other to kneel down. Esteemed Imperial Concubine, if you have any orders, this servant will do it even if I have to die 10,000 times. Grand Concubine Jing raised a hand to help him up. Get up and talk. What do you mean by dying? You've been serving His Majesty for a long time, and he can't bear to leave you. I'm just too worried about His Majesty. I don't trust the words of others, so I can only ask you. Eunuch Wei broke out in cold sweat. He didn't dare to let Grand Concubine Jing support his lowly body, so he quickly stood up and lowered his head. Esteemed Imperial Concubine, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Grand Concubine Jing asked, How is His Majesty's health? Eunuch Wei thought Grand Concubine Jing would ask about the reconciliation between His Majesty and Empress Dowager Zhuang. He didn't expect her to ask about His Majesty's health. Eunuch Wei felt ashamed that he had misunderstood Grand Concubine Jing. He said, Esteemed Imperial Concubine, His Majesty has been having trouble sleeping and eating lately. Grand Concubine Jing's eyes flickered. Is he in a trance and has nightmares at night? That's right. Eunuch Wei was startled. How did esteemed Imperial Concubine know? Grand Concubine Jing sighed. I've already guessed it. When I spoke with him just now, he seemed a little out of sorts. I asked him if he had stayed up all night reading memorials, but he said there were too many memorials. I'm guessing he just can't sleep, just like when he was young. This child. He'll have nightmares when he's under a lot of pressure, and then he'll ask me to hug him to sleep. I thought that after so many years, he wouldn't be like when he was young anymore. Eunuch Wei said, Esteemed Imperial Concubine is worried for His Majesty. Grand Concubine Jing smiled bitterly. He's my son, and I raised him with my own hands. How can I not be worried about him? All right, Did His Majesty use the calming incense I gave him? It's a prescription I asked a senior monk for. It can cure His Majesty's insomnia and dreams. Eunuch Wei. He used it. Grand Concubine Jing. He really used it? Eunuch Wei smiled embarrassedly. He indeed used it. If esteemed imperial concubine doesn't believe me, this servant can give you the ashes. Grand Concubine Jing smiled. No need, I believe you. In the entire Pure Flowers Palace, you're the only one who's sincere to His Majesty aside from me. Eunuch Wei bowed. This servant is afraid. Grand Concubine Jing handed him a box. This is a new calming incense, and its effects are better than the previous one. Take it and give it to His Majesty. I hope His Majesty won't be troubled by nightmares again. If it's useful, you can come find me again. I still have a lot more. Eunuch Wei took the box. Understood. Grand Concubine Jing said, Then I'll take my leave. Eunuch Wei bowed. Farewell, esteemed imperial concubine. After Grand Concubine Jing left, Eunuch Wei took the memorial and the calming incense to the imperial study, where he told the emperor about his encounter with Grand Concubine Jing. The emperor laughed. We don't remember anything from when we were young. You too, who told you to tell imperial concubine about our situation? You made her worry. Eunuch Wei explained, Your Majesty, esteemed imperial concubine can tell that you're unwell. Wouldn't it make her imagination run wild if you continue to hide it from her? The emperor shook his head. Forget it. Eunuch Wei smiled. Then this calming incense, the emperor said, since it's a token of imperial concubine mother's goodwill, just leave it there. We'll see how it goes tonight. That night, Eunuch Wei lit up the calming incense that Grand Concubine Jing had sent over for the emperor. The scent of this incense didn't seem to be any different from the usual calming incense, except that it was thicker. The emperor quickly fell asleep as expected. Eunuch Wei thought that he would be able to have a good night's sleep this time, and that he would be able to rest as well. However, no one expected that not long after the emperor fell asleep, he had another nightmare. This time, he did not dream that he was lying on the bed, unable to move, and could only be at the mercy of others. He dreamed that he slipped and fell off a cliff, and in the nick of time, he grabbed onto a vine on the edge of the cliff. There was a bottomless abyss below him, and he would be smashed to pieces if the vine were to break. He shouted with all his might, Protect the Emperor! Protect the Emperor! Finally, someone came over. It was Grand Concubine Jing. Grand Concubine Jing lay down. He was so moved that he was about to cry. Imperial Concubine Mother truly loved him the most in the world. However, Grand Concubine Jing didn't try to pull him up. Instead, she took out a dagger and cut off the vine. Ah! The feeling of weightlessness from falling into the bottomless abyss woke the emperor up abruptly. He sat up and gasped for air. Eunuch Wei heard the commotion and walked over with an oil lamp without even putting on his shoes. Your Majesty! He was shocked to see the emperor's pale face and cold sweat. Did you have another nightmare, Your Majesty? I. The emperor clutched at his chest, his body trembling uncontrollably. That dream just now had been too terrifying. That feeling of falling into the bottomless abyss was worse than being stabbed 10,000 times with a knife. It was just a nightmare. He was the emperor, not a cowardly person. How could he be scared to this extent? Even he looked down on himself. Have some tea, Your Majesty. Eunuch Wei put down the lamp and poured a cup of herbal tea to calm the emperor down. The emperor gulped it down, but he didn't calm down. I can't sleep, so I'll go read the memorials. Eunuch Wei couldn't persuade him otherwise, so he could only take the memorials from the imperial study. However, the emperor couldn't calm down at all. The fear from the nightmare was like maggots in his bones, unable to be shaken off. The emperor put down the memorials in frustration. I'm going out for a walk. There's no need for them to follow. Yes. Eunuch Wei held the lantern and left Pure Flowers Palace with the emperor. The emperor walked aimlessly. Before he knew it, he had arrived at Cunning Palace. Eunuch Wei asked softly, "Your Majesty, do you want to go to the Empress' place? This servant will go and pass on the message." The Emperor looked at the tightly shut palace doors and said indifferently, "No need. It's late, so don't wake Imperial Mother." Eunuch Wei was startled. Imperial Mother? Wasn't Empress Xiao the one living here? Empress Dowager Zhuang had already moved to Rancho Palace after the previous emperor passed away. Eunuch Wei looked at the emperor in confusion. The emperor suddenly came back to his senses and looked at him suspiciously. "What did I say just now?" Eunuch Wei was startled. And nothing. His Majesty said it's late, so don't wake the Empress." "Maybe I heard wrong. His Majesty said the Empress, not Imperial Mother." "Empress." The emperor was dazed for a moment. He suddenly frowned and said, "Why did I come here? Why didn't you warn me? It's the middle of the night. If I wake up the harem, it'll be chaos again." Yes, it's this servant's fault." Eunuch Wei felt extremely wronged. "Ever since you left Pure Flower's palace, you've been rushing here as if you've made up your mind. Who can stop you?" "Let's go back," the emperor said unhappily. The emperor didn't sleep much that night. After 3 in the morning, he changed his clothes and went to court. He was so tired that he almost fell asleep on the dragon chair. Empress Dowager Zhuang said in a mighty and domineering manner, "If you have something to report, court is dismissed." This irritable tone clearly meant that whoever dared to cause trouble would be punished. The civil and military officials all expressed that they had nothing to report. Eunuch Wei shouted, "Court is dismissed." After leaving the throne room, Empress Dowager Zhuang sat in her phoenix sedan. She glanced at the emperor, who was watching her leave, and said mockingly, "Don't die of exhaustion before the culprit is caught." The emperor said coldly, "Imperial Mother doesn't need to worry. I'm fine." "Someone's coming," Eunuch Wei reminded. The emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang immediately smiled. After returning to Pure Flower's palace, Eunuch Wei was invited to Grand Concubine Jing's Autumn Flower Pavilion by Mama Kai. Grand Concubine Jing was copying Buddhist scriptures. When she saw him come over, she smiled and asked gently, "Did your Majesty sleep well last night? You didn't have nightmares again, did you?" Eunuch Wei looked hesitant. Grand Concubine Jing's smile gradually disappeared. "What's wrong? Is your Majesty still unable to sleep?" "I did sleep, but..." Eunuch Wei sighed helplessly. "I had nightmares again and was quite frightened." The brush in Grand Concubine Jing's hand fell on the table. The tip of the brush rolled from the table to the ground, dirtying the page of scriptures she had just copied. "How could this be?" she murmured in disbelief. Eunuch Wei looked at Grand Concubine Jing strangely. Mama Kai quickly knelt down and picked up the brush. She used a handkerchief to wipe the ink on the floor. Everyone in the world cares for their parents, but His Majesty's body is not in harmony. It's unavoidable that Your Majesty is worried about His Majesty. This servant understands Your Majesty's feelings. But Your Majesty must take care of your body as well. The imperial physician said that your injuries haven't healed yet, so you shouldn't worry too much. Eunuch Wei looked at Grand Concubine Jing. Grand Concubine Jing's face was full of disbelief. She gripped the scriptures on the table so tightly that she crumpled them into a ball. Eunuch Wei was stunned. Mama Kai grabbed Grand Concubine Jing's wrist and stared at her. "Grand Concubine, you must hold on. His Majesty is already working hard for the country. You can't be anxious and harm your body." So she was too worried about His Majesty? Eunuch Wei sighed inwardly. "I'll have the imperial physician come over later." Mama Kai said gratefully, "Thank you for your trouble, Eunuch Wei." Eunuch Wei replied politely, "It's my duty." Mama Kai smiled. "I'll see you out, Eunuch Wei." Eunuch Wei declined. "No need. Mama Kai, you should take good care of the Grand Concubine." Mama Kai insisted on seeing him to the door. She smiled as she watched Eunuch Wei disappear at the end of the corridor before returning to the Autumn Splendor Pavilion. She looked at Grand Concubine Jing worriedly. "Your Majesty." Grand concubine Jing calmly rolled up her sleeves. All right, I'm fine now. The imperial physician went to the imperial study to take the emperor's pulse. He said that the emperor was overly worried, overworked, and had a weak liver fire. He prescribed a prescription that would strengthen the vitality and calm the mind. The emperor said disdainfully, "This prescription again. How many times have I taken it? When has it ever worked?" Eunuch Wei's eyes rolled. "Why don't we go find the little divine doctor?" The emperor snorted. "Didn't you hear her say that she won't come to Pure Hua Palace for treatment anymore?" Eunuch Wei smiled. "If she doesn't come to us, we can go find her. You can't go on like this. Even the grand concubine is scared out of her wits." The emperor frowned. In the end, he was persuaded. He and Eunuch Wei changed into their outfits and took a carriage to Miracle Hand Hall. However, they were told that Gu Jiao wasn't there. Dr. Song had seen Eunuch Wei before and knew that his master was Qin Chuyu's father, an official of the imperial court. He cupped his hands and politely said, "Miss Gu went to see a patient. When will she be back?" Eunuch Wei asked. Dr. Song said, "She didn't say, but I don't think she'll return to the clinic today. She'll be picking up students from Jingkong after school. Don't you know where her house is? Why don't you go directly to her house to find her?" The master and servant went to Jadewater Alley. Gu Jiao hadn't returned yet, so Madame Yao invited the two into the room. Today, Granny Zhou's two daughters-in-law, Auntie Lu, and her younger sister came to ask Madame Yao for advice on acupuncture. The room was full of women, but Auntie Lu's eyes were always on the emperor. The emperor's scalp was numb. Madame Yao pursed her lips and smiled. She invited the emperor to her grey tant's room and said, "Your Majesty, Master, why don't you sit in the room for a while? Jiao Jiao will be back soon." "Thank you, Madame Gu." The emperor thanked her politely. Auntie Lu ran over sneakily. The emperor was so scared that he bolted the door. The emperor sat in the small and cramped room. Because the doors and windows were closed, the light was dim. However, the dimmer it was, the more it magnified his other senses. He smelled a faint, warm aura. There was once this scent in his distant memory. When Gu Jiao came back from picking up little Jing Kong, she heard Eunuch Wei mention that the emperor couldn't sleep at night. She went to knock on her grey tant's door, but there was no response. Eunuch Wei was scared. Did something happen to His Majesty? Gu Jiao pulled out a dagger and pried open the door. Eunuch Wei quickly pushed the door open and rushed in. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty!" He was dumbfounded. The emperor, who said that he couldn't sleep, was lying on his back on the bed. He was drooling and snoring. He was snoring and farting in his sleep. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111463573. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 349. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Didn't you sleep well? Gu Jiao raised her brows and asked. Eunuch Wei opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound for a long time. From time to time, the laughter of Auntie Lu's sister and the two daughters-in-law of Granny Zhou's family could be heard. There were also the sounds of their children squabbling in the front yard with little Jing Kong. In the past, His Majesty would find it hard to sleep at the slightest noise in the palace. Now that it was so noisy outside, how could His Majesty sleep so soundly? His Majesty slept from the afternoon to the next morning and didn't even eat dinner. Gu Jiao watched as the emperor rushed to the carriage with his fluffy hair like a gust of wind to go to morning court. How did it look like he couldn't sleep? He clearly slept more than she did. Last night, when she stirred up the gunpowder, the entire family was awakened by the explosion. Only the emperor was snoring like thunder, and the entire courtyard was filled with his dragon breath, commonly known as snoring. Oh! Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. I thought I blew him up in the middle of the night. Drive the carriage. What are you standing there for? The emperor slapped the coachman's head. He was full of energy and definitely didn't faint from the explosion. The emperor had a good sleep and felt refreshed. He returned to Pure Flower's palace to wash up and change into his dragon robes before heading to the throne room. Empress Dowager Zhuang's Phoenix sedan also arrived near the throne room. Eunuch Qin reminded, Empress Dowager, His Majesty has also arrived. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who bowed for the 5 candied fruits, had someone get off the sedan and walked out with Eunuch Qin's help. The emperor also came out of the sedan and looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang with a smile in his eyes. He didn't forget to cup his hands in a sun salute. Son pays respects to imperial mother. Yesterday, he looked like a bag of wilted cabbage, but today, he clearly had energy. Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at him faintly and said, It's getting late. Don't delay and quickly go to court. Doesn't His Majesty always arrive earlier than Aijia? Why are you so late today? The emperor was too embarrassed to say that he overslept in Bisui Alley. Obviously, he couldn't sleep in the magnificent palace, but when he went to Empress Dowager Zhuang's small shabby room, he slept like a log. If he said this, he would despise himself. He would never admit that it was the room that was comfortable to sleep in. It must be that he was too tired after not sleeping for a few days. While the emperor was thinking, he inadvertently saw that Empress Dowager Zhuang was holding an exquisite hand warmer. This was a dual-purpose stove. In the winter, it could be filled with charcoal, and in the summer, it could be filled with ice. Holding it in one's hand, it would be very cool and cool, very good at relieving the heat. The emperor suddenly chuckled and walked over. He raised his hand and knocked down Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand warmer. The hand warmer smashed onto the bluestone floor with a bang. The material was very good, and it was not damaged. Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes turned cold as she looked at the emperor. Just as she was about to get angry, she saw several court officials walking over from not far away. Eunuch Wei, the Empress Dowager's hand warmer has fallen. Quickly pick it up for the Empress Dowager. Yes. Eunuch Wei picked up the hand warmer on the ground. Since it was dirty on the ground, he naturally couldn't just hand it over to the Empress Dowager. He was just about to wipe it with his sleeve. The emperor took the hand warmer and said, I'll do it. He took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the hand warmer. After wiping it as if it could shine, he smiled and handed it to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Mother, your hand warmer. The court officials who saw this scene couldn't help but secretly exclaim. The emperor was so filial to the Empress Dowager that he personally wiped her hand warmer. Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth twitched. She grabbed the hand warmer with a cold face. The emperor slyly reminded her, Smile, mother, smile, we're all watching. I'll smile your ass. Empress Dowager Zhuang faked a smile and said, Ha ha ha. The officials walked away. Empress Dowager Zhuang stopped smiling in a second and threw the hand warmer that the emperor had taken to Eunuch Qin with disdain. When she walked up the steps of the throne room, Empress Dowager Zhuang lifted her phoenix robe to cover her feet and stepped on the emperor's instep. The emperor, ow! There were people all around. He closed his mouth tightly and swallowed the cry of despair into his stomach. He was in so much pain that his facial features were twisted into a ball. Empress Dowager Zhuang smiled faintly. What's wrong with the emperor? The emperor stiffened and pinched his thigh. Foot. Move your foot away. Oh, the emperor sprained his foot? Empress Dowager Zhuang raised her eyebrows and stepped on his instep again. The emperor was in so much pain that he rolled his eyes and almost fainted. Empress Dowager Zhuang elegantly reached out and held his arm. She smiled and said, "I'll help you." Then she kept smiling and squeezed a few words from between her teeth. "Everyone is watching, Emperor. Smile." The emperor's smile was uglier than crying. The officials couldn't help but sigh. The Empress Dowager also loved this son very much. It seemed that after the misunderstanding of the Empress Dowager poisoning the young Duke of Zhaodu was resolved, the relationship between the mother and son really eased a lot. Gu Jiao knew nothing about the things in the palace. After she sent little Jing Kong to the Imperial College, she went to the medical center. She found that the medical center often had more patients in the morning and was a little idle in the afternoon. The little girl from the girls' school came next door to play the guqin from time to time, but now she couldn't hear it. She tried to let little Zhongli learn the guqin, but the girl was only interested in herbs. She was even more stupid when it came to learning the guqin than when she practiced writing. She had to give up the idea of letting little Zhongli play the guqin for her. Gu Jiao looked at the Fuxi guqin on the table. Her fingertips tapped on the guqin case a few times. She opened the case and took out the Fuxi guqin with the burnt tail. Her slender fingers gently stroked the strings, but she didn't play in the end. She put the Fuxi guqin back, closed the case, and got up to leave the medical center. She went to the martial arts center. After several months of challenges, she had become a great martial artist in the martial arts center from the lowest level. She should be a supreme master if she wanted to go further. It was said that there were no more than 5 supreme masters in the capital. They were very rare and hard to come by. Of course, this was the jargon. For the common people, they were a group of martial arts masters. When one reached the level of a supreme master, they rarely appeared in the martial arts world. Taihe Martial Arts Center had a supreme master in charge, but it was only in name. Gu Jiao had been to the martial arts center so many times, but she had never seen a single strand of his hair. The Marquis also came to the martial arts center today. He didn't just come to watch Gu Jiao compete. He also wanted to see if there were any other good seedlings here. If it was before, he could probably find a few, but since Gu Jiao, his eyes became picky. It seemed that it was very difficult to find a young, talented, and person who could control his murderous intent. He was a general on the battlefield. In this life, he had killed countless people. How could he not feel the murderous intent of a person? The Marquis didn't know what his sworn brother had experienced to have such a strong murderous intent. It was rare that he could control his murderous intent and didn't let himself become a murderous devil. This was another reason why the Marquis appreciated Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao came down from the martial arts arena. The Marquis also came out from the second-floor wing. The two met in the main hall. The Marquis smiled at Gu Jiao and said, "Is today's competition over?" Gu Jiao nodded. "You've made great progress recently." It was beyond his expectations. If he hadn't watched his little brother compete, he would have thought that his little brother was originally an expert who had lost his strength for some reason and was slowly recovering in some way. The Marquis asked again, "That's right, have you been practicing your spear recently?" At the mention of this, Gu Jiao blinked. The Marquis was slightly surprised. "Did you bring your red tasseled spear?" Gu Jiao shook her head. The Marquis didn't know that she had lost her red tasseled spear on the night she saved the Emperor. He thought that she had left it at home. He smiled and said, "It's okay. I just happened to bring you a new red tasseled spear." Gu Jiao followed him to the backyard of the martial arts center. The Marquis carriage stopped outside the back door. He went to the carriage and took a red tasseled spear wrapped in red cloth. He handed it to Gu Jiao. "Try it." Gu Jiao took it and opened the red cloth to take a look. Wow! It was the big guy she had taken a fancy to in the barracks. This red tasseled spear was 2 inches longer than the average red tasseled spear. It was also heavier. The spearhead shone with a cold light. Gu Jiao held it in her hand and tried it out. It was like a flying dragon, extremely domineering. The Marquis's eyes unconsciously revealed a bit of satisfaction. Sure enough, his vision was very unique. This red tasseled spear of the Yen kingdom was very suitable for his little brother. "Don't you think it's heavy?" he asked. Gu Jiao shook her head. She liked the weight of the spear. It had the power to destroy everything. It also had the ability to break 1,000 pounds. She tried it out a few more times. The more she tried, the more satisfied she was. She didn't like cold weapons before, but this red tasseled spear suited her very well. The Marquis had been observing her moves. It was the set of spear skills he had taught her. But that set of spear skills was more suitable for the ordinary red tasseled spear. It couldn't display the full power of the red tasseled spear. "Little brother Gu, wait a moment." He walked over. "Give me the red tasseled spear." Gu Jiao was playing happily. She smacked her lips and gave him the red tasseled spear. The Marquis took it. He didn't do any fancy moves. He only used one move. He bent his legs slightly. His right hand held the base of the red tasseled spear, close to his right waist. His left hand held the middle of the red tasseled spear. He pointed the spearhead forward and fiercely stabbed out. It seemed like a simple move, but at that moment, it was filled with endless killing intent. Even the wind and sand were stirred up and the leaves rustled. Gu Jiao's mask was almost blown off. She blinked, her eyes sparkling. She took out a small notebook and scribbled. "What move is this?" The Marquis patiently explained, "This is called the middle four. It is a middle-level spear skill. It is the master of the 6 harmonies spear. It is the first of the 24 forms of the spear." It seems simple, but in fact, it is full of wonderful changes. You don't need to practice anything else. Just practice this move. Come, give it a try. Gu Jiao took the red tasseled spear and tried it out. Oh! Naturally, it wasn't very good. The Marquis said, "Don't worry. Take your time." Thinking back, his master had made him practice this move for a full 5 years. He didn't understand his master's deep meaning. Many years later, he finally understood that the essence of the spear skill was in this move. Gu Jiao practiced for a while. She was sweating profusely. The Marquis felt that today's practice was enough. He said to Gu Jiao, "Let's practice another day. It's getting late. Little brother Gu, are you hungry? I'll treat you to donkey meat. There's a donkey barbecue restaurant next door. Little brother Gu should like it." Gu Jiao held the red tasseled spear upright in her arms. She took out a small notebook and wrote, "I have something to do tonight. I'll eat donkey barbecue with you another day." "I see." A trace of disappointment flashed through the Marquis' eyes. Gu Jiao looked at him and wrote, "You seem to have something on your mind?" No. He just wanted to find someone to drink to drown his sorrows." Gu Jiao continued to write, "We're sworn brothers. There's nothing we don't talk about." Little brother Gu was a trustworthy person. In addition, the Marquis had been troubled by something for a long time. He couldn't make up his mind. He hesitated for a while, then cleared his throat and said to Gu Jiao, "Little brother Gu, if you have a friend." Coming. I have a friend." Gu Jiao understood immediately. The Marquis opened his mouth and continued, "If he wants to do something unorthodox, will you support him or not?" Gu Jiao wrote, "That depends on what kind of unorthodox thing it is." The Marquis cleared his throat. "For example, taking someone and running away?" "Ah, the old man is going to elope with someone." Gu Jiao wrote without hesitation, "Yes." The Marquis' face was full of astonishment. "No, you don't even hesitate? So careless." Gu Jiao wrote down what she had read in her godfather's diary in her previous life. Love is a matter between two people. As long as you like each other, you can find freedom together. In the organization, you can't find freedom, and you can't like anyone. Otherwise, you'll be punished by your godfather. Gu Jiao couldn't understand why there was such a sentence in her godfather's diary. Forget it, she's dead anyway. She won't be able to see her godfather again. Gu Jiao continued to write, "If you're happy, go, chase, and beg, boldly. Don't be afraid of vulgar eyes. The Marquis gasped. What if I'm rejected? Gu Jiao wrote. If she rejects you, it means she doesn't like you. You can just give up. Why does she have the same tone as Gu Yen? Are all the young people nowadays so telepathic? The Marquis face didn't change. It's not me. Gu Jiao oh. When only one person affirms an idea, perhaps his heart isn't firm enough. But when more people affirm it, it can take root and germinate in the bottom of his heart. Not to mention that he just asked 2 random people and got the same answer. It was obvious that he worried too much before. This matter was originally very simple. He wanted to take her away from the palace. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428266/111433701. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 350. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online will be available here. The old Marquis did as he said and immediately started his plan. Gu Jiao still didn't know that she and Gu Yen had stirred up some trouble. After saying goodbye to the old duke, she went back to the medical center, took off her mask, changed her clothes, and went to the Imperial College to pick up little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong was in a good mood because he knew that Gu Jiao would come to pick him up after school. He was even more obedient in class and didn't argue with Teacher Sun for the whole day. Teacher Sun had the most relaxing day of the year. He felt that his middle-aged hair was not as thin as before. Come to my house to play. Su Kanji, who came out of the classroom, said to little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong shook his head coldly. I'm not going today. I want to go home with Jiao Jiao. Su Kanji thought for a while. Okay, then tomorrow? Little Jing Kong continued to shake his head. I'm not going tomorrow either. I want to go home with Jiao Jiao tomorrow too. Jiao Jiao would come to pick him up when his bad brother-in-law was away. He was very happy just thinking about it. Little Jing Kong shook his head and walked away proudly. Su Kanji was left alone in the same place with hidden bitterness. Brother, I'm really used as a spare tire. Little Jing Kong walked out of the Imperial College. Gu Jiao picked him up and walked back hand in hand. Little Jing Kong tilted his head and said cutely, Jiao Jiao, I miss you so much. You're even more beautiful today than yesterday. Gu Jiao curved her lips in amusement. Really? Little Jing Kong nodded quickly. Yes, yes. Monks don't lie. So, you're still a monk? Gu Jiao looked at the little buzz cut that someone had grown for the umpteenth time. She thought to herself, nothing will go wrong this time, right? She should be able to grow a head of thick black hair and tie it into a beautiful little bun, right? Little Jing Kong skipped back to Pushui Alley excitedly. Gu Jiao went to fetch water and chop firewood while little Jing Kong went back to his room to do his homework. Since Xiao Lulang wasn't around, his homework was checked by the old chancellor. The old chancellor hadn't finished his duty yet. Little Jing Kong finished his homework very quickly. He came out of the house and walked to Gu Jiao, who was chopping firewood. With his hands behind his back, he rolled his eyes and said, Jiao Jiao, I'm going next door to play with Xiaobao. Zhao Xiaobao was Master Zhao's biological grandson. He was 1 year younger than little Jing Kong and was the closest playmate to little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao didn't refuse. Okay, I'll call you when dinner is ready. The little guy rolled his eyes again. Then, can I bring something over? Sure. Gu Jiao didn't have any objection. She was chopping firewood and didn't see his sneaky expression. Little Jing Kong went back to his room, the East Room. That's right. Although his brother-in-law also lived in the East Room, little Jing Kong firmly believed that he was the master of the East Room. He had been taking in his bad brother-in-law who might be laid off at any time. What kind of little cutie was he? Little Jing Kong's junk half stayed at home and the other half moved to the small courtyard of the medical center. He opened the wardrobe, pulled out his small box, and poured out the books in the bag. Then, he picked up some interesting things from the small box and put them in. Jiao Jiao, I'm leaving. He carried the bag on his back and ran out of the courtyard. When Gu Jiao turned to look at him, the little guy had already run away. She couldn't help laughing. Naughty. Little Jing Kong was a child with great self-control. He didn't run around, so Gu Jiao didn't expect that the little guy didn't go next door. Instead, he carried his junk to a pawn shop on Xuanwu Street. When the boss of the pawn shop saw that it was a child, he thought that he was here to play. He hurriedly waved his hand and asked him to leave. Go play somewhere else. Little Jing Kong said, I'm not here to play. I'm here to pawn. It wasn't his first time here. He had done some research with Su Tang Tang and brother Chu Yu before, so he knew that there was a pawn shop here. The boss was amused when he heard that. It was always funny when a child talked like an adult. The boss wasn't in a hurry to ask him to leave. He smiled and asked him, What do you want to pawn? Well, these. See if there's anything you like. I'll pawn whatever you like. Little Jing Kong stood on his tiptoes but still couldn't reach the counter. He was anxious. Hey, you, come out and see for yourself. The boss was amused by little Jing Kong. He opened the door at the side and walked out. Okay, let me see what you have. He didn't think that this child was really here to pawn. He was most likely here to play. Little Jing Kong handed the bag to him. The boss took out the things inside and placed them on the counter. He was the first one to laugh out loud. In their line of work, they had to be knowledgeable. From the antiques of the previous dynasty, to the calligraphy of the great scholars, and even the rare items of the Six Nations, they had more or less dabbled in them. Look at what this child had in his bag. The house deed of the Liang nation, the tiger talisman of the Zhao nation, the luminous cup of the Chen nation. The next item was even more impressive. He even had the imperial jade seal of the Jin nation. The boss laughed until his stomach hurt. Were there so many different kinds of toys for children these days? Not to mention, the impersonation was quite realistic. The boss didn't think that these things were real at all. The boss put the things back and handed him a piece of malt candy with a smile. He only gave it to him because he was cute. So many good things. You're amazing. Okay, go back. Little Jing Kong held back his saliva. I don't want candy. I want to pawn it. The boss said, You can't pawn it. Little Jing Kong widened his eyes and said, Why? Is there nothing here that catches your eye? You haven't finished looking at it. There's more inside. If you like it, I can pawn it for you at a cheaper price. Little Jing Kong was in urgent need of money. Although he was a small landlord and received 2 payments of rent every month, his money had been handed over to the Jiao Jiao for safekeeping. If he needed it, he had to get it from the Jiao Jiao. But he didn't want the Jiao Jiao to know. That was why he thought of pawning it. Looking at his cute little face, the boss couldn't bear to tell him that his things were fake and that he couldn't pawn it. He only said to him, You can't pawn it. Don't run around, kid. Go back quickly. Little Jing Kong was rejected and let out a long sigh. He lowered his head and walked out of the pawn shop slowly with a bag of books on his back. There were a total of 3 pawn shops on Xuanwu Street. He went to the other 2 pawn shops, but he was chased out before he could even enter. The little guy who was rejected again and again was traumatized. He pursed his lips and felt wronged. He walked back dejectedly. Suddenly, a man wearing a crescent-white long-sleeved robe, an ink-blue gauze robe, and a jade belt around his waist blocked Little Clear Sky's path. The man had a gentle expression and held a folding fan in his hand. He smiled and looked at little Jing Kong. "Little brother, do you want to pawn something?" "How did you know?" Little Jing Kong looked at him warily. The man patted his palm with the folding fan and smiled. "I was looking for something in that pawn shop just now. I saw you being chased out by them." "Oh." Little Jing Kong was relieved. "So you saw it?" The man smiled. "What a coincidence. I didn't see any suitable antiques in the pawn shop. Little brother, do you have anything I like?" Little Jing Kong thought for a while. "I can show you." The man squatted down and put his hand into little Jing Kong's bag of books. He looked surprised as he looked. "Little brother, you have a lot of things." Little Jing Kong stuck out his chest. "I knew it. I have a lot of good things. You know what's good for you. What do you want? I'll give it to you at a cheap price." "No, I don't know you. I can't redeem it in the future. I'll sell it to you at a cheap price." He had asked the young master what pawning meant and knew that it was different from selling. The man looked down and smiled. He took out a golden abacus from little Jing Kong's bag of books. The owner of the first pawn shop didn't see the golden abacus. Otherwise, he would know that it was not fake. Among all the things, little Jing Kong liked the golden abacus the most. He felt his heart ache when he saw that the man picked it. The man smiled. "Sell this to me, how about it?" Little Jing Kong bit his lip and nodded. This is very expensive. How much is it?" the man asked. Little Jing Kong said painfully, 500 taels. This was the amount he needed. He wouldn't sell it if it was less than this price. "Okay." The man took out 5 100 taels banknotes and gave them to him. Little Jing Kong took the banknotes and looked at his beloved golden abacus reluctantly. "Little Jean, goodbye forever." "I'm sorry. I don't want to sell you." But he had no choice. Little Jing Kong knew real banknotes. After all, he collected rent every month. He put away the banknotes, carried the bag of books, and left with tears in his eyes. The man looked at little Jing Kong's sad back and couldn't help laughing. "Little brother. My name is Ming Yu. You can call me young Master Ming Yu. We'll meet again someday." Little Jing Kong wiped his tears with his hand. Sob. Little Jean was gone. So sad. "Young master." A young god in gray walked over from the alley. He looked at the golden abacus in the man's hand and said, "He has so many good things. Why did you choose the most worthless one?" "That's right. Any one of the items in little Jing Kong's bag of books was more valuable than the golden abacus." The man glared at him. "You want to take advantage of a child?" The young god curled his lips. "You said it as if you didn't take advantage of him. 500 taels of banknotes for a golden abacus. You're losing money." "But," the young guard went back to the topic, "is this child really related to that person?" The man snorted. "Who else can get so many treasures except for that person?" The young guard paused. "Then, will that person appear?" The man looked at the small figure disappearing at the end of the street and said, "Keep an eye on this little monk. That person will appear one day." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111431783. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 351. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. Little Jing Kong didn't return home until it was almost dark. When he entered the door, he took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He couldn't let Jiao Jiao see him sad for little Jean. He poked his little dimples, raised his smiling face, and entered the house cutely. Gu Jiao finished chopping the firewood and packing the herbs. When she turned around, she saw the little guy jumping over. "You're back," she said. "Yes." Little Jing Kong ran over and stretched out his short arms. "Jiao Jiao, I'll help you. You take this." Gu Jiao scooped a small ladle of herbs from the big basket and gave it to him. "Okay." Little Jing Kong happily took the ladle and carefully returned to the central room without spilling any herbs. After dinner, Gu Jiao went to pack little Jing Kong's things. The little guy always messed things up and didn't know how to put them back properly. This time, when Gu Jiao was packing, she realized that something was missing. Most of little Jing Kong's things were packed in different boxes. Gu Jiao usually didn't open those boxes privately, not because they looked shabby, but because she respected the child's privacy. However, some things were directly exposed, such as little Jin's abacus. "Jing Kong," Gu Jiao called. Little Jing Kong, who was arranging little Chick's array in the central room, came in and asked with his head tilted, "What's wrong, Jiao Jiao?" "Where's your abacus?" Gu Jiao asked doubtfully. Little Jing Kong rolled his eyes. "I put it in the clinic." "Really?" Gu Jiao thought for a while, "But I just cleaned up the small box you put in the clinic today. I didn't see your abacus." Little Jing Kong blinked and said, "Oh, I forgot. I lent it to Brother Chuyu. He said he would return it to me later." Little Jing Kong rarely lied. He had a good reputation, so Gu Jiao did not suspect him. After leaving the East Room, little Jing Kong covered his chest and heaved a long sigh of relief. That scared him to death. He was almost discovered by Jiao Jiao. Luckily, he was a clever little devil. It rained in the evening. Gu Yan's secret guard came back to report that the road was difficult to travel. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshun stayed at Nanxiang and Master Lu's house. Tomorrow, they would go directly to Qinghe Academy from there. Nanxiang and Master Lu liked Gu Shaoshun and Gu Yan very much. Gu Jiao had nothing to worry about. She asked the secret guard to bring 2 sets of clean clothes for them. On the other hand, the old duke, who was encouraged by Gu Yan and Gu Jiao, felt that he had received unprecedented support. He had lived for the Zhao country and the duke's manor all his life. Except for fighting desperately on the battlefield, he had done almost nothing bold in private. He had been cautious and conscientious all his life. But perhaps because he was old and did not have many years left to live, he did not want to have regrets in this life. He had let her down as long as he lived for others. In the few days left, he did not want to let her down again. Fortunately, the army that he had cultivated for His Majesty had been trained. Gu Chongqing had also grown up. The Duke's manor had a successor, so he could rest assured. "Go and call the Crown Prince here," the old Duke ordered. "Yes." The manservant went to Gu Chongqing's courtyard and called Gu Chongqing over. Gu Chongqing looked at the old Duke who was sitting on the main seat. His expression was clearly different from before. He said lightly, "It's so late. Grandfather is looking for me?" The old Duke looked at him deeply. This was the grandson that he had brought up. He had poured all his heart and soul into him, more than he had poured into his son Gu Chong. And he had lived up to his expectations. He had grown up to be his ideal son. The old Duke handed him 2 tokens of different quality. One was the Gu family army's token. The other was the secret army's token. "Grandfather, what is the meaning of this?" Gu Chongqing asked strangely. The old Marquis looked at him and sternly said, "You've grown up, and some burdens should be handed over to you. I may not be able to see the day when the Gu family army reinvigorates, but I hope that you can see that day." "Why won't I be able to see it?" Gu Chongqing asked lightly. The old duke wanted to say something but hesitated. He pinched the corner of the table and said, "I have my own arrangements. You don't need to ask." Gu Chongqing laughed coldly and said mockingly, "Grandfather always has his own arrangements. Just like that matter back then." Finished speaking, he didn't wait for the old duke to ask him what it was and turned to leave. He accepted the token. He was a son of the Gu family. Whether it was his authority or his burden, he would spare no effort to bear it. The old duke looked at his grandson's resolute figure and sighed helplessly. Afterward, he had the manservant call for Gu Changfeng and Gu Changlin. They were all his grandsons, so he naturally doted on them. However, he didn't regard them as highly as he did Gu Chongqing, nor did he cherish them as much as he did Gu Yen. This was probably the sorrow of not being able to occupy both sides. He wasn't as capable as Gu Chongqing, nor was he as delicate as Gu Yen. Naturally, he received less attention. When the day of separation finally arrived, the old duke's heart was filled with reluctance. He looked at the two of them. He originally wanted to say some emotional words between grandfather and grandson, but when he saw Gu Qinglin's newly grown bald head, the corner of his mouth twitched. He couldn't say anything. He also gave the two of them a token and some family assets. The family assets were first sent to Gu Chongqing for safekeeping and would be handed over to them on the day the two of them set up their own families. He also left something for Gu Yen. He had already sent someone to send it to the hidden guards. When the time was right, he would hand it over to Gu Yen. Gu Jiao was married. A married lady was like spilled water. He didn't leave a token for her, but seeing that she was wholeheartedly devoted to Gu Yen, he still gave her a sum of money. It was also in the hands of the hidden guards. Marquis Gu went to repair the roads and wasn't in the residence. However, the old duke didn't even think about this invisible son of his. After handing everything over, the old duke left the manor in the middle of the night. Gu Changlin looked at the token in his hand. He didn't know what it was used for and asked in confusion, "Second brother, don't you think grandfather is acting a little strange today?" Gu Changfeng looked at the token, then at the boundless night sky, and said thoughtfully, "Quite strange indeed." It was a dark and windy night. The bustle and liveliness of the day faded from the capital, turning it into a quiet, isolated city. In the hazy night, a dark shadow leaped onto the walls and snuck into the palace like a ghost. A group of patrolling imperial guards walked past. Ever since the assassination attempt on Grand Concubine Jing, the palace's defenses had been strengthened and the number of imperial guards had doubled. Did you hear anything just now?" one of the imperial guards asked. His companion replied, "No, did you hear anything?" The rest of his companions shook their heads in unison. The first imperial guard scratched his head in confusion. "Maybe I heard wrong." He turned back to look at the impregnable palace walls. Apart from the patrolling imperial guards, there were also palace experts and hidden guards lying in ambush at the four corners of the walls. If someone had really snuck in, they wouldn't have gone so far as to deceive everyone, right? Let's go, let's go. Go ahead and patrol." The imperial guards marched forward in an orderly fashion. Not long after they left, a figure hidden in a tree flew in the direction of Pure Flower's palace. He was abnormally familiar with the palace's defenses, so he avoided the gazes of all the imperial guards and palace experts and successfully snuck into Pure Flower's palace. Grand Concubine Jing was currently sitting in a small meditation room, tapping on a wooden fish and chanting scriptures. Suddenly, a dark shadow flashed in and appeared behind her. However, when the dark figure was only 3 steps away from her, another dark figure leaped down from the roof beam, holding a long sword that was flashing with a cold light, and coldly blocked in front of him. The Dragon Shadow Guard. The old Marquis was shocked. "Stop," Grand Concubine Jing said. The Dragon Shadow Guard lowered his long sword. "Withdraw," Grand Concubine Jing said. The Dragon Shadow Guard flew up and flew out of the window. The old Marquis knew about the Dragon Shadow Guard. This was a group of death guards that the previous emperor had spent a lot of money to buy from the Yen Kingdom. They had been secretly trained for many years to become the previous emperor's Dragon Shadow Guard. He hadn't expected to see the dragon shadow guard by Grand Concubine Jing's side. You! He was suddenly at a loss for words. If His Majesty had given the dragon shadow guard to her, didn't that mean her situation wasn't as bad as he imagined? Why are you here? Grand Concubine Jing stared at her. The old Marquis met her gaze and found his voice after a long while. I heard you encountered an assassin in the palace and almost got ambushed by something Marquis Xian Ping gave you. Marquis Xian Ping was investigating this case in a rather high-profile manner, so all the civil and military officials had heard about it. The old Marquis naturally didn't believe that Marquis Xian Ping and the old Chancellor would frame Grand Concubine Jing. However, this was the terrifying part of this matter. The culprit was hiding in the dark, so it was impossible to guard against them. Grand Concubine Jing lowered her eyes and sighed. I'm fine. She put the wooden fish back on the table. The old Marquis frowned when he saw the injury on the back of her hand. You're injured. Grand Concubine Jing lowered her hand and covered it with her sleeve. It's just a small injury. It's nothing. Was it done by that person from Rancho Palace? After some thought, the old Marquis felt that Empress Dowager Zhuang was the only one who didn't want Grand Concubine Jing to come back. All of this might have been planned by the Empress Dowager in secret. Grand Concubine Jing lowered her eyes and smiled bitterly. Don't talk nonsense without evidence. We can't beat that person. Her pitiful and aggrieved appearance aroused the old Marquis's blood. Based on the old Marquis's personality, he might as well go all the way to Rancho Palace and assassinate Empress Dowager Zhuang to avenge her. However, the old Marquis was here to take Grand Concubine Jing away. He was a man with a plan, so he had to act according to plan. Empress Dowager Zhuang could be killed next time. He took a deep breath and said, I saw the dragon shadow guard just now and was hesitant about doing this. But since she's so arrogant, it's not appropriate for you to stay here any longer. I'll take you away now. Grand Concubine Jing was startled. What? The old Marquis said, Don't worry, I'll avenge you, but I won't let you down again. I'll take you away now. With that, he grabbed Grand Concubine Jing's wrist and walked out. The two had just reached the door when they bumped into the Emperor, who had come to visit Grand Concubine Jing. Digression. Third watch. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111424515. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 352. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. The Marquis moved so quickly that Grand Concubine Jing didn't even have time to react before she was brought to the door. Of course, the main reason was that she hadn't expected the Marquis to do this all of a sudden. Even she herself was outside of the situation. The only person who was even more outside of the situation was the Emperor. The Emperor looked at the Marquis in his night-traveling clothes, then at the hand that was holding Grand Concubine Jing's wrist. His brain exploded on the spot. All he heard was a buzzing sound, and then his mind went blank. The scene in front of him was so stimulating that he lost his voice. The Marquis paused in his steps. He clearly hadn't expected to run into the Emperor either. He had clearly seen that the lights were still on when he passed by the Imperial study, so he thought that the Emperor would take a long time to read through the memorials. Grand concubine Jing was the first to react, and she quickly pulled her hand back. The Marquis, on the other hand, subconsciously grabbed her hand back. Only then did he realize that something was wrong, but the disaster was already done. The Emperor flew into a rage and roared, "Gu Chao!" The Marquis trembled and let go of Grand concubine Jing's hand. The one who was startled by the Emperor's shout was Granny Kai, who had gone to the bedchamber. Granny Kai saw Grand concubine Jing and the Marquis at the door, and then saw the furious Emperor outside. What else could she not understand? She cursed inwardly. She had only been gone for a short while, so how did she get into such a big mess? If she had known this would happen, she would have held it in just now. The Emperor clenched his fists tightly and used all his strength to suppress the urge to behead the Marquis. He squeezed out one word after another through gritted teeth. "Gu Chao. What is going on here? You'd better make yourself clear." If the old Chancellor were here, he would have countless flowery words to smooth things over. Whether the Emperor would believe him or not was another matter. In any case, the Marquis would refuse to admit it and insist that the relationship between this official and the Grand Concubine was pure. Unfortunately, the old Marquis's temperament was not like this. On the battlefield, he used troops like a god. He was extraordinarily cunning, and there was nothing too deceitful in war. Once he was on the battlefield, his brain seemed to be stuck there. In private, he was a straightforward person and didn't have the slyness and shamelessness of the old Chancellor at all. If the Emperor did not catch him, he could not explain to the Emperor. But since the Emperor had seen him, there was no point in quibbling. He knelt down with a thud, and the floor almost cracked. "Your Majesty." He raised his head and said sorrowfully, "I am guilty." Granny Kai took the opportunity to point at his nose and said, "Of course you're guilty. As a subject of His Majesty trusts you so much, but you sneaked into the palace in the middle of the night to kidnap Imperial Concubine Dowager. Admit it, admit it. Senior Marquis, hurry up and take the blame for yourself. You mustn't implicate Her Highness." An inconspicuous eunuch quietly retreated from behind a large tree not too far away. He sprinted all the way to Ranshou Palace and reported the movements in Pure Flowers Palace to Eunuch Qin. Oh, what a bastard if he didn't watch the fun. Eunuch Qin happily went to report to Empress Dowager Zhuang. What's there to see? Empress Dowager Zhuang had no interest in Grand Concubine Jing's romantic affairs. But Eunuch Qin wanted to see it. It was so heart-wrenching. Eunuch Qin advised earnestly, "You'll lose a piece of meat if you see it. You've been acting with His Majesty for so long, so it's time to see the results. The sooner you step on her, the sooner you don't have to act anymore, right?" Empress Dowager Zhuang thought it was feasible and put down the memorial in her hand to go to Pure Flowers Palace. The atmosphere in Pure Flowers Palace was so heavy that everyone couldn't breathe. The palace servants all fell to their knees and trembled. "The Empress Dowager has arrived." Following Eunuch Qin's announcement, everyone prostrated themselves even lower. Grand Concubine Jing and Granny Kai both glanced over at the same time. Empress Dowager Zhuang was dressed in a gorgeous and expensive phoenix robe. The robe and wide sleeves were embroidered with phoenixes about to take flight. As she slowly walked over in the dark night, she inexplicably gave off the pressure of a judge. The old Marquis and the Emperor silently confronted each other and didn't look at Empress Dowager Zhuang. Even so, the two could still feel her aura. Eunuch Wei bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang walked up the steps and swept her gaze over everyone. She asked calmly, "Oh, it's so late, but Pure Flowers Palace is still so lively. Even old Marquis Gu has come. Why is the old Marquis kneeling? He's even kneeling in Nanjing An's meditation room." At the mention of this, the Emperor remembered that Gu Chao was kneeling in the wrong place. He gritted his teeth and said, "Get out here and kneel." The old Marquis knelt in the courtyard. Empress Dowager Zhuang slowly asked, "What happened? Does His Majesty want to punish him to kneel?" Granny Kai hurriedly said, "Empress Dowager, the old Marquis snuck into the palace in the middle of the night and kidnapped esteemed concubine Dowager. If His Majesty hadn't arrived in time, esteemed concubine dowager might have met with a mishap. Empress Dowager Zhuang raised an eyebrow. Oh, kidnapped the old concubine. Ijia remembers that Pure Flower's palace had the dragon shadow guards left behind by the previous emperor. Are they all dead? Are they waiting for His Majesty to rescue the old concubine? The emperor's expression changed when he heard this. He'd been so angry that he'd forgotten that he'd sent the dragon shadow guards to Grand Concubine Jing's side. That's right, with the dragon shadow guards there, how did Gu Chao get close to Grand Concubine Jing? It couldn't be that the dragon shadow guards were lured away again. Even if they were lured away for a while, he'd been here for so long that the dragon shadow guards should have returned by now. The dragon shadow guards hadn't appeared from beginning to end, so there was only one possibility. Grand Concubine Jing had them withdraw. Therefore, it wasn't Gu Chao who'd kidnapped Grand Concubine Jing. It was the two of them. The two of them. The emperor forced himself not to think about those two words, but Eunuch Qin said them out loud. Ah. It's the middle of the night. Is Nun Jing and thinking of escaping the palace with the old marquis? Eunuch Wei said, That's right, that's right. You two aren't really thinking of escaping the palace, are you? Granny Kai was about to go crazy. She glared at Eunuch Wei. Whose side are you on? Eunuch Wei covered his mouth. His mouth was loose. Eunuch Qin. Be careful with your words. Granny Kai shouted. But what was the use of being loud? It was just a bluff. The truth was right in front of them. No amount of sophistry could cover up the fact that the dragon shadow guards hadn't made a move. Grand Concubine Jing looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang through the dark night. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't even have a child, but she was still able to stand tall in the harem for so many years. How could it be just luck? It wasn't that she didn't know how to use those tricks, but there were some things that she disdained to fight for. And this seemed to give some people the wrong impression that she was just so. She couldn't do anything other than take the blame and be bitterly disappointed. Zhuang Jins was proud. The proud Zhuang Jins wouldn't come to watch Grand Concubine Jing's drama, nor would she hit her when she was down. She was disdainful. Zhuang Jins had changed. She was still proud, but there was something more than that. Grand Concubine Jing clenched the string of Buddhist beads in her hand. Empress Dowager Zhuang smiled coldly. I've asked you several times over the years if you wanted to come back, but you said no. You were doing well in the nunnery. I thought you were just being polite. As she spoke, she looked at the old duke meaningfully. So it's true. Empress Dowager Zhuang stopped there and left with Eunuch Qin. Granny Kai was anxious. Empress Dowager. You can't say that. When did you ask Grand Concubine if she wanted to come back to the palace? Did Empress Dowager Zhuang ask? Of course not. But were they the only ones allowed to accuse her? In this situation, at the right time, at the right place, I'm going to kill you. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who bowed down for 5 candied fruits, was so domineering. Men always cared about this kind of thing, and because they cared, they were suspicious. Empress Dowager Zhuang's words were the straw that broke the camel's back. Granny Kai knelt down and begged, Your Majesty, don't listen to Empress Dowager's nonsense. Grand Concubine and old Duke Gu are innocent. Grand Concubine never said that to Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager never sent anyone to the nunnery to ask Grand Concubine to come back. Grand Concubine is your mother. You have to believe her. Your Majesty. You have to believe Grand Concubine. The Emperor's heart ached. It hurt more than when he found out that the old Chancellor was his father. Maybe it was because he subconsciously knew that the old Chancellor and Empress Dowager Zhuang couldn't be real. A woman like Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't need any man. She was too strong and powerful. However, his concubine Jing was weak and helpless, and Gu Chao had saved her life. When he was hesitating whether to agree to Gu Chao's request for marriage, it was she who spoke for Gu Chao. Could it be that she really had Gu Chao in her heart? He looked at concubine Jing sadly and said with red eyes, If I didn't happen to meet you, would you have left with him? At this moment, He finally understood why he was so upset. Even if Empress Dowager Zhuang really had a man, she wouldn't give up the country and power. She was still the high and mighty Empress Dowager Zhuang and his mother. No matter how much he disliked her, despised her, and hated her, he could never get rid of her. But concubine Jing just wanted to abandon him. She didn't want him, she didn't want her son anymore. The emperor's throat swelled with pain. He turned around and held back the tears in his eyes. You can go. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/111405566. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 353. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. If he didn't leave now, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop himself from chopping off Gu Chao's head. Even though he deserved to die. Your Highness, Grand Imperial Concubine. Granny Kai cried out miserably. The emperor turned around abruptly and saw the old concubine's pale face. She looked like a withered autumn leaf that was about to fall. She took one last look at the emperor with tears in her eyes before she closed her eyes and fainted. The emperor stepped forward to catch her. Holding her bony body, he yelled anxiously, "Mother! Mother! Summon the imperial physician." By the time the old concubine woke up, it was already past midnight. The emperor was reviewing memorials in his study with the old marquis kneeling in front of him. The emperor hadn't thought of how to deal with him yet, but it was too embarrassing to let him kneel in the courtyard. A young eunuch came to the door of the study. Eunuch Wei walked over and listened to him say a few words. He nodded and returned to the study, whispering, "Your Majesty, the old concubine is awake." The emperor didn't have the urge to rush over to see her like he used to. Perhaps he was hurt by her abandonment of him. He never thought that he was less important to her than a wild man outside. The emperor glared coldly at the old marquis. It took him a lot of effort not to issue an imperial edict that would exterminate his entire family. Eunuch Wei sighed and said, "Your Majesty, do you want to go take a look?" The imperial physician said that the old concubine's condition isn't good. She even spat out a mouthful of blood just now. The emperor's heart skipped a beat when he heard about the old concubine spitting out blood. After all, they had been mother and son for so many years. It wasn't something that could be broken so easily. He got up and went to the old concubine's bedchamber. The old concubine had just taken some medicine, and her face was paler than before. The emperor suddenly remembered that she had been either sick or injured since returning to the palace. It seemed that she hadn't had a single day of peace. She probably wanted to escape because she was too tired, too bitter, and too scared. "You may leave," the old concubine said to Granny Kai and the others. "Yes." Granny Kai left with the servants. The emperor stood not far from the bed and did not immediately walk over. Grand concubine Jing propped herself up with her elbows and coughed softly. She wasn't pretending to be weak at this moment. She hadn't recovered from the injuries she suffered when she was put in a gunny sack, and 2 of her meridians were broken, causing her to cough up blood. She asked, "Your Majesty, is there anything you want to ask me?" The emperor clenched his fists. Grand concubine Jing smiled bitterly. "Forget it, I'll say it myself. Did your Majesty think that I was going to abandon you?" Cough cough. Her chest hurt terribly, and she coughed uncontrollably for a while. "If I tell your Majesty that I have no such intention, and that I have never thought of leaving your Majesty, would your Majesty believe me?" The Emperor said nothing. "Yes, I didn't let the Dragon Shadow Guards stop the old Marquis because he saved my life after all. I didn't know what he was going to do, so I couldn't rashly let the Dragon Shadow Guards kill him. Later on, he was also anxious. He thought that I had suffered a lot in the palace and wanted to take me away. I didn't react in time. I was about to refuse when His Majesty came." The Emperor clenched his fists tightly, and his gaze was cold. "Then, Mother, did you really never have any feelings for him?" "No," Grand Concubine Jing said. "Mother, are you so sure?" the Emperor asked. Grand Concubine Jing met his gaze without dodging and said firmly, "Yes, I'm very sure of my feelings. I've only ever had the late Emperor in my heart, and no other man has ever existed. I've always treated him as my savior, and I have no romantic feelings for him." He misunderstood. After she finished speaking, she suddenly sensed something and turned to look at the door. She saw the old Marquis standing there with a shocked and hurt expression. She was stunned. "Don't be so impulsive. You'll implicate your family. I was born as a member of the imperial family, and I'll die as a member of the imperial family. I can't escape from it for the rest of my life. I don't want you to be implicated because of me. Your family is innocent. Think of Chongqing, Chang Feng, Cheng Lin, and that child who suffered from heart disease since childhood. Can you bear to let them die with you for your own selfish reasons? I'm not afraid of death, but I don't want to harm them. From now on, pretend you've never seen me. Just say in front of His Majesty that it was a moment of impulse and not romantic feelings. What I owe you, I'll return it to you in my next life." Originally, she could have said so much to calm him down without offending a single one of them. But now it was all too late. She looked at the Emperor. The Emperor turned and looked expressionlessly at the old Marquis. Beloved official Gu has heard esteemed imperial concubine's thoughts? He hadn't just heard it. Every single word was like a stab to his heart. The old Marquis was so angry that his entire body trembled and his knuckles cracked. Grand Concubine Jing's expression changed and she opened her mouth. However, the old Marquis didn't give her a chance to explain. He took out the red knot that he'd kept for many years and casually tossed it into the fire before turning to leave. Grand Concubine Jing closed her eyes. Her knuckles under her wide sleeves were white from clenching them so hard. News of what happened in Pure Flower's palace didn't spread. Everyone in Pure Flower's palace had been ordered to keep their mouths shut. Even Empress Xiao didn't hear anything when she came over. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't leak anything either. The Emperor was very grateful for this. He called out to Empress Dowager Zhuang on his way to court and awkwardly thanked her. "What are you thanking me for?" Empress Dowager Zhuang asked indifferently. No one was watching, so what was the point of pretending? "It's nothing." The Emperor left without looking back. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes. How shameless. The nunnery in the palace had been renovated and Grand Concubine Jing had moved there. It was said that the Emperor had been tied up with official business that day and hadn't personally brought Grand Concubine Jing to the nunnery. She couldn't have fallen out of favor, right? A palace maid whispered as she swept the floor in the imperial garden. The eunuch beside her said, "How could that be? Esteemed imperial concubine is His Majesty's mother. It was His Majesty who personally brought her back from the nunnery." "But haven't you heard that His Majesty and the Empress Dowager have reconciled? And His Majesty is in such a hurry to have esteemed imperial concubine move out of Pure Flower's palace." The palace maid was halfway through her sentence when she felt someone pinch her arm. "I didn't say anything wrong. She turned around and saw Grand Concubine Jing's sedan stop behind her. She dropped to her knees in fright. Grand Imperial Concubine." Grand Concubine Jing didn't say anything, but Granny Kai glared at her with resentment. "Let's go," Grand Concubine Jing said. "Yes," Granny Kai replied. Once they were far away, Grand Concubine Jing said to Granny Kai, You saw it. Everyone in the palace is dependent on His Majesty, except for the one in Rancho Palace. Granny Kai looked at her with heartache. Your Highness. Grand Concubine Jing casually plucked a leaf and rubbed it as she murmured, without His Majesty's love, one would choke to death just from drinking water in the palace. She doesn't need it, she doesn't need it. Gu Jiao hadn't been to the palace for a few days. Xiao Lulang didn't seem to do much when he was at home. But when he left, everyone realized that he was the one who worked the hardest at home. Not to mention other things, just tutoring 3 little boys was enough to torture them to death. Little Jing Kong always had 100,000 whys, Gu Yen always had 100,000 reasons why he didn't want to learn, and Gu Xiaoshun always had 100,000 reasons why he didn't understand. The old chancellor was old after all. He could handle it for a day or two, but he was on the verge of schizophrenia after working so hard every day. Moreover, he wasn't free every day. Once he was held up by the directorate's official business, the task of tutoring fell on Gu Jiao. Therefore, Gu Jiao was very busy recently. Little Jing Kong had an abacus homework today. Gu Jiao asked him to take out the golden abacus. Where's your abacus? Didn't Chu Yu return it to you? Little Jing Kong rolled his eyes. I returned it, but I lent it to Brother Kanji again. We're all good friends, we should treat each other equally. Yes, treat each other equally. He was really a clever little boy. Gu Jiao looked at him suspiciously. Really? Little Jing Kong nodded repeatedly. Really. I didn't sell it. Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes. After finishing her homework, dinner wasn't ready yet. Gu Jiao went to the backyard to collect the dried herbs. Little Jing Kong poked his head out from the central room. Jiao, I'm going to play with Zhao Xiaobao. After saying that, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. Zhao Xiaobao again. The little guy always went to find Zhao Xiaobao recently. When did he become so fond of playing with kids younger than him? Gu Jiao felt strange. After hesitating for a while, she put down the herbs and went out of the yard. She went next door. Uncle Zhao was repairing a stool in the yard. When he saw her, he smiled and greeted her, Jiao. Come in and have a seat. Uncle Zhao, Gu Jiao greeted him politely and asked, Is Jing Kong here? No. Uncle Zhao shook his head. As expected. Gu Jiao asked again, Where's Xiaobao? Is he here? Uncle Zhao said, Xiaobao is not here. He went to find Brother Hu. Brother Hu was Granny Zhou's grandson. He lived at the other end of the alley. Did little Jing Kong go there to find Zhao Xiaobao? Uncle Zhao asked, Did Jing Kong go out? Gu Jiao said, Yes, he said he went to find Xiaobao. Uncle Zhao frowned and pointed in the direction of Chang'an Avenue, saying, I've seen this child go that way several times recently. I thought you knew. Then I'll go look for him. Gu Jiao left the Zhao family's house and walked in the direction of Chang'an Avenue. The little guy had become bolder recently. He even dared to lie and sneak out of the alley. Gu Jiao decided that when she caught the little guy later, she would punish him severely no matter how cute he acted. Gu Jiao came to Chang'an Avenue. Chang'an Avenue used to be more prosperous than Xuanwu Avenue. However, since the girls' school opened on Xuanwu Avenue, it had attracted a lot of customers. Now, the two streets were almost on par. Gu Jiao walked a few steps and vaguely sensed a strange breath. The breath was very faint. It was almost impossible to detect if one was not close enough. That person was watching Jadewater Alley. Gu Jiao rarely walked in this direction. The last time she came, there was no such breath. Gu Jiao's fingertip moved, and a piece of black gunpowder shot out. The person thought it was a hidden weapon and blocked it with his sword. The gunpowder exploded on the blade. What is this? The man rolled down from the roof with a clatter. Gu Jiao took a few steps forward and stepped on the person's chest. The person was not to be trifled with. Even if he was hit by the gunpowder, he still had some strength to fight back. He jumped up like a carp and avoided Gu Jiao's foot. Then, he waved his sword and stabbed at Gu Jiao. The only weapon Gu Jiao used in her previous life was a dagger. It was not easy to hurt her with this weapon. Gu Jiao grabbed his wrist with one hand and twisted it to knock the dagger out of his hand. Then, she chopped him with her hand and slammed him against the wall. Gu Jiao pinned his hands behind his back and pressed his face against the cold wall. "Who are you? Why are you sneaking around here?" he said angrily. "It's none of your business." Just as he finished speaking, a golden object fell out of his arms and fell to the ground. If it was not little Jing Kong's golden abacus, what else could it be? Gu Jiao's gaze turned cold. "So you were the one who stole the golden abacus?" The person shouted. "What do you mean by that?" "I didn't steal it." Gu Jiao said coldly. "If you didn't steal it, then you stole it?" The person gasped. "I didn't steal it either." Gu Jiao exerted force and he felt his bones cracking. He hurriedly said, "I bought it. I got someone to buy it. You can have it if you like it. It's not worth much anyway." The golden abacus was not worth much? How arrogant. This person obviously knew martial arts. Gu Jiao was worried that he bullied little Jing Kong and extorted it from little Jing Kong. She did not want to show mercy. Just as she almost broke his ribs, he suddenly said, "You can ask him if you don't believe me. I bought it from him." Gu Jiao turned her head and looked at little Jing Kong. When their eyes met, little Jing Kong's body trembled. "Jiao Jiao?" He quickly hid the abacus behind his back. Gu Jiao pressed the man with both hands and did not have the hands to pick up the abacus. She looked at the golden abacus on the ground and said, "You found your abacus. Pick it up." Little Jing Kong did not move. He lowered his head. The guard in gray said, "Little brother, this is the abacus that my master bought from you. Do you still remember my master?" The man who held a white jade fan and wore a white robe and a black veil. Little Jing Kong's expression gave Gu Jiao the answer. Gu Jiao let go and the guard in gray fell to the ground in pain. What kind of woman was she? Why was she so strong? Gu Jiao walked over and squatted down to look at little Jing Kong. She asked, "Why did you sell your abacus?" Little Jing Kong lowered his head and said, "I want money." Gu Jiao looked at him and said seriously, "You can tell me if you want money. All your money is with me. I'm just keeping it for you. You can take it whenever you want." Gu Jiao saw that he did not speak, so she asked again, "What do you want to do with the money?" "I want to buy this." Little Jing Kong took out the cloth bag hidden behind his back. The cloth bag was heavy and bulging. She did not know what was in it. Gu Jiao took the cloth bag and asked, "Why do you want to buy this?" Little Jing Kong whispered, "For Jiao Jiao." "For me?" Gu Jiao opened it strangely, and a bright red light shone out of it. She had never expected that it would contain a brand new wedding dress. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111402767. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 354. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online will be available here. A strange emotion filled Gu Jiao's chest. She felt that her heart was slightly swollen, as if someone had placed a sun in it. Even the tip of her heart was hot and painful. She had never dealt with such strong and complicated emotions before, so she didn't know what it was. What a beautiful dress! Who did you make it for? It's for Sister Jinyu. Why did you make such a beautiful dress for her? Jiao Jiao doesn't even have it. The conversation between the little guy and Yao flashed across Gu Jiao's mind. It wasn't that she didn't hear it, but she didn't take it to heart. Did the little guy take it to heart? Did he feel bad that someone else had a wedding dress but she didn't? She didn't think about the wedding dress. She was already married and didn't need a wedding dress anymore, although she had never worn one before. In this world, no one would think that she still needed a wedding dress. Except for this little guy who didn't know anything. This little guy who wanted to give her the best things in the world. In order to buy her a beautiful wedding dress, he sold his most beloved Xiao Jin. She always asked very little from others. Perhaps it was because she had been in deep despair when she was young, so when she grew up, she avoided all expectations in order to avoid disappointment. This had always been her principle of doing things. She realized that living like this would make her feel peaceful. But Jing Kong, you'll spoil me like this. Gu Jiao stared at him, almost speechless. Little Jing Kong thought that she was angry. He lowered his head, grabbed his little fingers, and said nervously, Jiao Jiao, don't be angry. I'll buy Xiao Jin back when I earn money in the future. He just wanted to give Jiao Jiao a surprise, so he didn't ask Jiao Jiao for money. But he didn't expect that Jiao Jiao would catch him selling Xiao Jin. So sad. More sad than losing Xiao Jin. He did not want Jiao Jiao to dislike him. The gray-clothed guard also didn't expect that the little monk he was tailing would end up in such a situation. Both he and the young master were puzzled as to why the little monk needed so much money at such a young age. Who would have thought that he wanted to buy a wedding dress for this little girl? After keeping an eye on the little monk for so long, the guard in gray finally got some information about him. The little monk was called Jing Kong and came from a remote temple in Yuzhou province. About 1 year ago, he was adopted by someone and returned to the secular world. This little girl should be the little monk's current family. She couldn't tell that the little monk knew how to dote on people. It was really strange. That person didn't raise such a good disciple, but instead gave her to someone else to raise. Why? Was he not afraid that others would mistreat this little fellow? However, looking at the little fellow's fair and tidy clothes, it was obvious that he had been treated very well. The pain on the gray-robed guard's body finally subsided a little. However, the explosion just now had left a bald patch on his forehead. He stood up with one hand holding the wall and touched the bald spot on his forehead with the other. He gritted his teeth and asked Gu Jiao, "Hey, what kind of hidden weapon did you use just now?" Gu Jiao looked back at him and asked lightly, "What does it have to do with you?" The guard in gray was speechless. Did this little girl return his words to him? The guard in gray said, "I didn't steal or rob. I was beaten up by you for no reason. Don't you feel sorry for that?" Gu Jiao said, "You were looking for a child to buy something, and you were tailing him sneakily. Don't you think you deserve to be beaten up?" It seemed to make sense. The guard in gray was speechless. Gu Jiao had never been polite to such people. Not to mention a fair deal, from the moment they approached little Jing Kong, their motives were already impure. It was just that she didn't want to fight in front of little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao took back the golden abacus and said, "Why are you still here? Are you waiting to be beaten up?" The guard in gray weighed the pros and cons, and after confirming that he really couldn't beat her, he left resentfully. Little Jing Kong lowered his head and tugged at the corner of his little clothes. "Jiao Jiao, if you don't like it, I can." What he got in response was a warm hug. He was stunned and blinked his big eyes. His eyelashes flickered. "Jiao Jiao? I like it." Gu Jiao hugged the little guy in her arms tightly and breathed in his warm breath and milky fragrance. "I like it very much. Thank you, Jing Kong." Little Jing Kong finally felt relieved. He buried his little head in Gu Jiao's neck. Jiao Jiao liked his present. It was so nice. Gu Jiao patted his little head and put the golden abacus in his hand. "Don't sell it in the future. It's so beautiful that I'll be reluctant to part with it. Okay. He nodded. Xiao Jin also came back. It was so nice. The two of them went home happily. The gray-clothed guards also returned to their temporary residence. They were originally staying in an inn, but later on, their young master felt that there were too many people in the inn, so he found a guarantor to rent a residence near Jadewater Alley. It was in a small alley at the end of Chong An Avenue. Firstly, it was quiet. Secondly, it was close enough to monitor the little monk. But it seemed that he had a bad start today. What happened? The man who called himself Master Mingyu in front of little Jing Kong looked at the guard in gray with disheveled hair and a dirty face. He frowned and said, "How did you get yourself like this? And why is your head bald?" The guard in gray quickly covered the bald spot on his forehead and said gloomily, "Master also said that if you didn't ask me to keep an eye on the little monk, I wouldn't have gotten into trouble." The man put down half of the incense and snorted coldly. "Don't be so pretentious. I indulged you too much in the past. As a guard, you're not good enough and you're not as good as others. How dare you put the blame on me?" The guard in gray was embarrassed. The man continued to mix the incense. "What happened? Were you discovered?" "Yes. The little girl beside the little monk is so powerful. I don't know what kind of hidden weapon she used, but it actually—" The guard in gray gestured and said, "It actually exploded. Like a firecracker." The man's handsome brows furrowed. "Exploded? Firecracker?" The guard in gray shook his head. "It's not a firecracker. Firecrackers were bamboo. When it was burned in a fire, it would make a crackling sound like an explosion. That was why it was called a firecracker." "Oh, I don't know what it was. I didn't see it clearly. I thought it was a dart, so I pulled out my knife to block it. In the end," he touched his bald forehead, "I became like this." The man stopped mixing the incense again. He pondered for a moment and said thoughtfully, "Could it be the black fire pearl?" The guard in gray was puzzled. "What black fire pearl, master?" The man said slowly, "It's a hidden weapon from the Yen Kingdom. It's similar to what you described just now. It's said that this hidden weapon is made of sulfur and is more powerful than ordinary darts. If you encounter it, you can't take it head-on. You can only avoid it. Otherwise, you'll be blasted into a bloody mess." "Sulfur?" The guard in gray was suddenly enlightened. "Yes, yes. That's the smell of sulfur." Then the man shook his head. "It shouldn't be just sulfur. I also used sulfur to make it, but it didn't work." The guard in gray was surprised. "So, that girl is from the Yen Kingdom?" The man smiled faintly. "Do you know that only the royal family of the Yen Kingdom has that kind of hidden weapon?" "What?" The guard in gray was shocked. The man said again, "But it could be that person who gave it to her. After all, she even took away the letter of credence of the Yen Kingdom. What's the big deal if she took away a few black fire pearls?" The guard in gray nodded. "That's right." The man smiled. "Otherwise, do you think she made it herself? Or she has something to do with the royal family of the Yen Kingdom?" The guard in gray didn't think it was possible. Even his master couldn't make it. How could a little girl make it? As for having something to do with the royal family of the Yen Kingdom, forget it. A small country like the Zhao Kingdom couldn't even walk on the official road of the Yen Kingdom. How could she have something to do with the royal family? The guard in gray asked, "Then, should I continue to keep an eye on the Clear Water Alley, master?" The man glanced at him and said angrily, "You've been exposed. Don't go there for a few days." The guard in gray said, "Oh." But he really wanted to go there. He wanted to see the black fire pearl. It didn't matter if he was blasted. After returning home, little Jing Kong couldn't wait to let Gu Jiao try on the new clothes he bought for her. Gu Jiao thought for a while and asked him if he knew what she bought. "Beautiful clothes," little Jing Kong said. It seemed that he didn't know it was a wedding dress. Gu Jiao explained to him, "It's a wedding dress. You can only wear it when you get married." "Huh? Little Jing Kong was stunned. He raised his two small hands and scratched his small buzz cut. Jiao Jiao and brother-in-law are married. So I can't wear Jiao Jiao? It seemed that. It could be said that way. It's okay. Little Jing Kong suddenly straightened his back and patted his small chest. Jiao Jiao, you can marry me again. Gu Jiao was amused. Children can't get married. He thought for a while. Then wait for me to grow up. When I grow up, I'll marry Jiao Jiao. When Jiao Jiao gets married again, I'll be able to wear the wedding dress. That's right, that's the reason. He's really a clever little boy. He was so proud of himself that he shook his little head. Little Jing Kong still didn't know that his words had come true. Later, Gu Jiao did get married again and wore the wedding dress he gave her. Unfortunately, the groom wasn't him. Digression. Heartbreaking. Little Jing Kong 2333. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111378017. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 355. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. Today's dinner was made by senior servant Fong. Accidentally added too much firewood, causing the dishes for Little Jing Kong to be a bit burnt. Little Jing Kong was not picky about his food, and he finished it without leaving anything behind. He wanted to grow up quickly so that he could marry Jiao Jiao. On the other side, Xiao Lulang, who was in Pingshan village, didn't know that his wife was being targeted by the little fellow. He was helping the villagers move wood on the embankment. There was also an inspector from the Ministry of Revenue moving with him. More than a dozen people lined up in a line. They didn't need to move as the first person passed the wood over. In a shed not far away, Royal Prince and was helping the Minister of Revenue organize the accounts for this trip to the countryside. The Ministry of Revenue of the current dynasty was in charge of the country's territory, farmland, household registration, taxes, salaries, and all financial matters, including farming. They were going to the countryside this time to provide relief and also to help the villagers dig canals to draw water and rebuild the fertile fields after the disaster. They didn't have enough manpower, so some things had to be done by the officials themselves. Royal Prince and suddenly appeared in the group on the day of departure. Before that, no one knew that he would go to the countryside with them. Royal Prince An's leg injury was almost healed, so he should be able to walk. He and Grand Tutor Zhuang had sent someone to inform the Minister of Revenue, so he was asked to stay by the Minister of Revenue's side to do some idle things. While he was recording the accounts, he inadvertently glanced at Xiao Lulang, who was beside the embankment. Because of the hot weather, the villagers had all taken off their shirts. Even the inspector from the Ministry of Revenue was shirtless. Xiao Liulong's white undergarment was particularly eye-catching. His clothes were soaked in sweat and clung tightly to his body. Usually, it wasn't very obvious because of the heavy official's robe. Today, one could see that his body was more muscular than expected. His sleeves were rolled up high, revealing his well-defined forearms. Royal Prince and subconsciously pinched his forearms. He didn't seem to be as muscular as him. Moreover, Royal Prince and vaguely remembered that a year ago in the countryside, Xiao Lulang was not as tall as him. Why did he look so much taller now? Editor Zhuang, are you done with this? The Minister of Revenue reminded him. Just a little bit more. Royal Prince and came back to his senses and handed the last page to the Minister of Revenue. "All right, please take a look." Xiao Lulang and the villagers were busy until the sun set in the west. The villagers baked pancakes, steamed cornbread, and mixed pickled vegetables for everyone to eat. Originally, he wanted to kill the chicken, but was rejected by the Minister of Revenue. The imperial court does not extort the wealth of the people, does not take a single cent from the people, does not covet a single grain of rice from the people. The rice and flour were also paid for by the villagers. Prince An was not used to it. Even during the most difficult days in the state of Chen, he had never eaten this kind of food. He saw that Xiao Lulang was enjoying it. Xiao Lulang and the villagers sat on the ridge of the field, not burdened by the image of an imperial Hanlin official. An uncle from the village walked over and sat down next to Xiao Lulang. He asked with a smile, "Lord Xiao, are you used to it?" "Pretty good," Xiao Lulang said. Xiao Lulang treated people coldly, not like Royal Prince, and who was always as gentle as jade and had the appearance of a modest young master. However, he worked the hardest and did not put on airs. The villagers were more willing to get close to him. Uncle took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention and took out a boiled egg for him. "It's hot, eat it quickly. I see that you've been working the whole day. You're working even harder than us. Your aunt cooked it for you." Xiao Lulang refused. "No need, I'm full. Uncle Zhang can eat it himself." Eldest uncle forced the egg into his hand. "Hey, just eat it. Last time when Gooden had a stomachache, if you didn't give him medicine, he wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Also last time, when Li Zhang was bitten by a poisonous insect, it was also you who treated him. This has nothing to do with the court, it's all your medicine." Gooden was the youngest son of uncle and aunt. Uncle knew that medicine was very expensive no matter how ignorant he was. In order to treat the villagers, Lord Xiao had emptied his own medicine bag. He didn't know how much money that was, but it definitely wasn't something that an egg could pay for. Uncle sighed, "If you don't eat it, your aunt will nag me again when we get back." "It's not like you don't know how naggy that woman is." In the end, Xiao Lulang accepted the egg. Uncle was very happy and told him many things about the village with relish. Only when Gooden came to call him did he reluctantly leave. He said that he would come find Xiao Lulang the next day. Xiao Lulang also returned to the temporary hut. The hut was built temporarily. There was only a table, a cabinet, and 2 wooden beds piled up with wooden stools. One was his and the other was Royal Prince Anne's. Royal Prince Anne was more particular about the finer things than him. He even put in a mosquito net. He didn't use a mosquito net. He had the mosquito coils made by Gu Jiao, so he didn't need a mosquito net. It wasn't too late now. He planned to go to the nearby forest to pick some medicine for Gu Jiao. He didn't know the name of the medicine, but he saw Gu Jiao drying it in the courtyard a few times. He took his basket and walking stick. When he reached the door, he heard a horse carriage coming towards them. After it stopped, a middle-aged man wearing an official's robe came down. Who else could it be but Marquis Gu? After Marquis Gu fixed the road, he immediately came to inform them. He first went to greet the Minister of Revenue. Royal Prince An was also there. Considering the marriage between the two families, Royal Prince An was now his son-in-law. Marquis Gu was very cordial and polite to Royal Prince An. When Xiao Lulang walked past him with a basket, he didn't even look at Xiao Lulang. Royal Prince An reminded him, "Marquis Gu, that was Xiao Xiuzhua. This Marquis knows." Marquis Gu said carelessly. They had met in the countryside. He would recognize him even if he turned into ashes. He didn't know any etiquette at all. He was clearly a poor boy from the countryside, but he didn't care about him, his father-in-law. Royal Prince An was born noble, but he wasn't as arrogant as him. Royal Prince An felt Marquis Gu's contempt towards Xiao Lulang. He said with slight confusion, "He's Marquis Gu's son-in-law." Marquis Gu thought, "I didn't acknowledge that girl. What son-in-law or not? Even if he acknowledged that girl, he wouldn't accept a poor boy from the countryside as his son-in-law." So what if he was the top scholar? So what if he entered Hanlon Academy? He's still a country bumpkin. He, Gu Chong, only had one son-in-law, Royal Prince N. I heard that you're not used to the food in the countryside, so I brought some good food for you. Marquis Gu didn't want to talk too much about Xiao Lulang. He took the roast duck, crispy chicken and jerky that he bought on the way from the carriage and gave them all to Royal Prince N. He didn't leave anything for Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang didn't know that Marquis Gu was favoring Royal Prince N. He entered the forest. He had come to pick herbs a few times, so he was quite familiar with the path in the forest. After walking for a few minutes, he found the herbs he needed. He squatted down and started picking the herbs. He had heard Gu Jiao tell Yu Ye before that this kind of herb was hard to buy in the capital. She had to carefully dry it. When Xiao Lulang went to deliver the herbs to Gooden, he accidentally saw a few stalks of this kind of green grass lying on the ground in their house. After asking, he found out that there were many stalks of this kind of grass near the river in the forest on the east side of the village. Xiao Lulang quickly picked a basket full of herbs. It was about time for him to go back. Just as he turned around and walked down the mountain, he suddenly heard a rustling sound behind him. He felt a chill down his spine and quickly turned around. It turned out to be a hungry wolf with two glowing green eyes. This was the edge of the forest. The villagers had never seen a wolf before, but he met one today. His luck really didn't disappoint. This was a lone wolf that got separated from the pack. It was starving and looked at the prey in front of it. It didn't hesitate for long before opening its bloody mouth and pouncing towards Xiao Lulang. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Lulang took out a small round bead and threw it towards its head. With a loud bang, the hungry wolf was blown up and blood splattered everywhere. It howled and fell down. It turned its head to look at Xiao Lulang before running away with its tail between its legs. Xiao Liulong's whole body was soaked in cold sweat. He looked at the lone wolf that ran away and breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that my luck isn't that bad. Gu Jiao gave Xiao Lulang a total of 3 black gunpowder. She was afraid that he would blow himself up if she put too much. After all, he was always so unlucky, right? Xiao Lulang came to the river and squatted down to wash his face. But as he washed, he instinctively sensed a trace of danger approaching. Could it be that the lone wolf was back? No. This time, the aura was much more terrifying than the lone wolf. He frowned warily, turned around and put his hand into the bag of gunpowder. Not far away, 2 masked men in black stood on the riverbank with swords in their hands and looked at him covetously. Their eyes were full of murderous intent. It just so happened that he still had 2 black gunpowder left. He said that his luck was still not bad. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the bag loosened and the black gunpowder fell into the water. Xiao Lulang. Digression. A person can't be arrogant. Come, next sentence. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111376358. HTML Genius memorized this site's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 356. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. Is the gunpowder that fell into the water still useful? This was not the main point. The main point was that he didn't have a chance to get it. The 2 black-clothed men raised their swords and slashed at him. The powerful killing intent was wrapped in sharp sword energy. It almost created wind blades in the air, and even the air was cut open. Even a normal expert could not escape from this killing move, not to mention a little cripple like Xiao Lulang. He could only watch as the other party's swords slashed at him. He closed his eyes. The two swords slashed at his head at the same time. However, in the end, they did not fall. When they were only an inch away from him, the two people stopped at the same time. Xiao Lulang opened his eyes. The two people fell straight to the ground. They did not even have time to close their eyes. Behind the two people, Chongjing nimbly put away his sword. Then Chongjing went to find the black bead in the water. He picked up the black bead as if it was very fun. He squeezed it hard. Bang! He was blown up. Marquis Xianping walked over from the back of the hill. He was wearing a heavy purple brocade robe. He strolled leisurely with a lazy expression. He was like this. It was clearly a small country road, but it made him walk like he was on the path to immortality. When Xiao Lulang saw him, his expression did not change. He was as cold as before. Fortunately, Marquis Xianping was used to it. He came in front of Xiao Lulang and looked him up and down, as if to see if he was injured. After confirming that his child was unharmed, he looked at Chongjing, who was sitting on the ground in a daze. He used the tip of his foot to lightly kick Chongjing's little butt. Who told you to kill everyone? How many times have I said, leave them alive, leave them alive? Chongjing ignored him. He stood up with a dark face and used his qinggong to leave. Yes, he was angry. Marquis Xianping looked in the direction Chongjing left and said to Xiao Lulang, Chongjing is still young. Don't be angry with him. Xiao Lulang looked at Marquis Xianping expressionlessly. Who was angry with him? Marquis Xianping was still unaware of Xiao Liulong's disdain. Magnanimously and confidently, he flicked his wide sleeves. Who did you offend? Why would someone come to kill you? Xiao Lulang ignored him. He picked up his walking stick from the riverside and brushed past Xiao Lulang, walking straight ahead. Although it was called a crutch, it was actually a beautiful cane made by Gu Jiao herself. After the piercing pain in his foot disappeared, he was no longer as difficult as before. Marquis Xianping was continuously ignored, but he was not angry. He was magnanimous and did not bicker with a child. He followed her shamelessly. He was handsome, and he looked especially good when he was thick-skinned. The green mountains, the clear waters, and the sunset glow were all inferior to his good looks. Unfortunately, it was useless no matter how handsome he was. A certain someone didn't even look at him. AI. Marquis Xianping sighed. Xiao Lulang walked for a long time. A certain someone sighed behind him for a long time. Xiao Lulang pinched his fingers and said with a frown, Why are you following me? Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows. Am I following you? Did you open this road? Did you plant this tree? Xiao Lulang said coldly, I'm going back to the village. Marquis Xianping said, What a coincidence, me too. Xiao Lulang turned and walked down another road. Marquis Xianping quickly followed. Xiao Lulang stopped in his tracks and pointed at the path from before. The village is over there. Marquis Xianping, who was tricked. Hee, as long as he didn't feel awkward, others would feel awkward. Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows. I want to go this way. All roads lead to the village. Xiao Lulang took a deep breath and decided to ignore him and treat him as air. He turned back to the original path. After walking a few steps, the sky turned dark and the forest was quiet. From time to time, there would be the sounds of insects and strange birds. When the sounds entered one's ears, it would make one's hair stand on end. The trees in this forest were tall and shady. Even the moonlight couldn't shine down. Marquis Xianping was a martial artist and had good eyesight. Even with the thin light, he could see his feet clearly. Xiao Lulang might not be able to. He was originally a cripple and couldn't see clearly. He staggered a few steps. Marquis Xianping strode over and stood in front of him. He squatted down slightly and said, Come up. Xiao Lulang looked at the broad back in front of him and didn't move. I can walk by myself. Marquis Xian Ping straightened his body and turned to look at him. Are you sure? The night is so dark. Can you walk? Xiao Lulang raised his walking stick. I have a walking stick. Pa. The walking stick broke. Xiao Lulang stared coldly at Marquis Xian Ping. Marquis Xian Ping sighed helplessly and spread out his hands innocently. It's not me. It broke by itself. Xiao Lulang clenched his fists and said angrily, We're not far from the village. I'm very familiar with this path. At most, I'll walk slower. It's not like it's raining. What's there to be afraid of? Even though he said that, he didn't even walk 2 steps when the heavy rain poured down. Xiao Lulang looked at Marquis Xian Ping. Marquis Xian Ping stared with his eyes wide open. It's not me this time. Xiao Lulang gritted his teeth. So you admit that it was you just now? It really wasn't me. Marquis Xian Ping said with an aggrieved face. In terms of shamelessness, Marquis Xian Ping was on par with the old chancellor. He might even be more shameless than the old chancellor. After all, the old chancellor was only playing the thick black theory in the officialdom. He was still quite normal in his daily life. On the other hand, Marquis Xian Ping was shameless to the extreme. Marquis Xian Ping said gloatingly, Come on, come on. I'll carry you. You definitely won't be able to walk out. Xiao Lulang was angered to death by him. His eyes were like torches as he said, Who says I won't be able to walk out? Even if I only have 1 leg left today, I will still jump out. After saying that, he turned around and left. AI. Marquis Xian Ping stretched out his hand to grab him. However, in order to avoid his hand, Xiao Lulang rushed forward without caring about anything. In the end, he missed a step and fell into the big pit covered by the grass. He fell face first into the pit and fell flat on his face. His other leg was also sprained. Marquis Xian Ping covered his eyes and couldn't look anymore. Why are you walking so fast? I can't even pull you back. Marquis Xian Ping pulled this unlucky child out of the pit and laid him flat on the ground. Xiao Lulang made a dying struggle. I don't want you to carry me. Oh. Marquis Xian Ping bent down and wrapped his hands around a certain person's back and knees. Picking him up, he said in a particularly obnoxious manner, How old are you that you still want to be carried? Xiao Lulang. What kind of father was this? Come and strike him with a bolt of lightning. On the west side of the village, the temporary huts that the officials had set up were bustling with noise and excitement. It was not reduced in the slightest by the heavy rain. The road had been repaired and they could return to the capital the next day. Everyone was very excited. In addition, Marquis Ding and had brought quite a bit of good food. The officials who had been eating cornbread and salted vegetables in the village for over 10 days finally had a chance to eat meat. Everyone ate until their faces were red. It seemed that no one noticed that Xiao Lulang was missing. It was the patrol officer who had worked with Xiao Lulang during the day that sensed that something was wrong. He held a piece of duck meat in his hand and asked, How come I don't see Lord Xiao? Once these words were said, everyone looked around. That's right, where was Lord Xiao? It was no wonder that no one remembered him. It was because Xiao Lulang had not mingled with the court officials after he went to the countryside. He was always on the front lines of disaster relief and farming, mingling with the villagers. It was normal for him not to be by their side, so no one deliberately thought of him. It's raining. Perhaps he's hiding from the rain at one of the villagers' houses. Another patrol officer said. A registrar from the Ministry of Works said, He's this ambitious at such a young age. He mingled with the villagers as soon as he arrived. His political achievements this time should be quite good. Whether he had ambition or not, he just did not say it out loud. People were strange like this. If they did not work, then those who did work would be blamed. No one said that Royal Prince An, who always followed the Minister of Revenue, was ambitious. Instead, it was Xiao Lulang who mingled with the villagers that was mistakenly said to be trying to gain popularity among the people. Royal Prince and looked at Marquis Gu and saw that he did not care about Xiao Lulang. He called for Wu Yong. Go find Lord Xiao. Yes. Wu Yong took the order and went out. As soon as he opened the door of the hut, he saw a strong and muscular figure in the heavy rain, walking like the wind towards them with a person on his back. His head was covered by his own outer robe, covering the person on his back. He only wore an inner robe and his clothes were already soaked by the heavy rain. He stepped into the puddles and the rain made it hard for him to open his eyes. What's wrong? Royal Prince saw that Wu Yong was frozen at the door and asked him, what happened? That. Wu Yong did not dare to recognize it. Everyone saw that something was wrong and quickly squeezed to the door to look in the direction he was pointing. Everyone was stunned. Someone recognized him. Isn't that Marquis Xian Ping? No one had ever seen Marquis Xian Ping in such a sorry state. He was the most handsome man in Zhao country. He was very particular and also very vain. Other than on the battlefield, he had never let anyone see him in such a disheveled state. But at this time, he was like a falcon in a storm. In order to protect the young on his back, he plucked out his beautiful feathers and built a nest to shelter him from the wind and rain. Digression. Third watch, it slipped out again. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428226/111370516. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 357. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. Regardless of rank or status, Marquis Xian Ping was above everyone else. After he was recognized, no one dared to hide in the hut to hide from the rain. They all rushed out with umbrellas. Everyone fought to hold umbrellas for Marquis Xian Ping. Marquis Xian Ping looked at everyone impatiently. The rain was already so heavy that it was hard to see the road, but this group of people still blocked it. Out of the way! Marquis Xian Ping shouted. Everyone was scared by the murderous aura that he inadvertently emitted. They all retreated to the sides. There were huts one after another. Marquis Xian Ping didn't know which one was Xiao Liulong's residence. But in the end, it wasn't the one that this group of people had rushed out of. He walked to the side. It's the other way around. Xiao Lulang, who was lying on his back, said weakly. Marquis Xian Ping paused in his steps and ran to the other side. When he reached the third hut, Xiao Lulang said, "We're here." The hut was simple and crude. There wasn't even a decent table. The bed was made of a wooden bench and a wooden plank. If Grand Tutor Zhuang was here, he would feel sorry for his grandson's living environment. When Marquis Xian Ping was fighting, he had spent 10 days to half a month in the trenches. He had chewed on tree bark and grass roots. He had slept in a cowshed and squatted in a horse stable. His son shouldn't have been pampered. He should have been thrown into a mud pit for him to crawl and roll in. In the beginning, he couldn't bear to see Princess Xinyong raise Xiao Hang so delicately. He raised him like a porcelain doll. He was beautiful, but he couldn't stand up to one of his fingers. If he touched him, he was afraid that he would crush the little guy to death. There were 2 beds in the hut. One had a mosquito net, the other didn't. "Where's your bed?" Marquis Xian Ping asked. Xiao Lulang pointed to the one without a mosquito net. Marquis Xian Ping carried him to the side of the bed. After thinking, he called over an official outside, "Bring a chair over." "Yes, yes." An assistant minister from the Ministry of Revenue acknowledged the order and personally went to the shed that was used as the main office to bring over a bamboo chair. When Marquis Xian Ping carried the person into the room, everyone had a faint guess as to the identity of the person on his back. When Marquis Xian Ping placed him on a chair, that guess was confirmed. Xiao Lulang. It really was Xiao Lulang. It was already very strange for Marquis Xian Ping to appear here on a rainy night. What was even stranger was that he actually carried Xiao Lulang back. And from the looks of it, Xiao Lulang seemed to be injured. What exactly happened? Everyone was confused. Other than the official who moved the chair into the room, no one else dared to enter. The Minister of Revenue and Royal Prince and walked over. "Marquis Xiao." Before the Minister of Revenue could finish his greeting, Marquis Xian Ping coldly interrupted, "Wooden bucket. Hot water." The Minister of Revenue opened his mouth in shock. "Yes, this official will do it right away." Strictly speaking, the Minister of Revenue was not a subordinate of Marquis Xian Ping, but Marquis Xian Ping was a first-rank martial marquis personally conferred by the Emperor. His status was illustrious and his title was honorable. He was not someone a third-rank official could neglect. The Minister of Revenue had someone bring over a brand-new wooden bucket that had not been used before and order the inspector to boil water. They came here to provide disaster relief, not to enjoy a vacation. Thus, they did not bring any servants to serve them. They paid for their daily meals and the villagers sent it over. The rest of the work was done by lower-ranked officials. While waiting for the hot water, Marquis Xian Ping began to take off Xiao Liulong's wet clothes. Xiao Lulang had a face of resistance. Marquis Xian Ping turned to Royal Prince An and the other officials who were standing at the door. "He is thin-skinned, all of you leave." No one dared to disobey and tactfully left. Royal Prince An asked, "Do you need help?" "No need." Marquis Xian Ping refused without thinking. Perhaps everyone here would give face to Royal Prince An, but Marquis Xian Ping would not. It was not that he had a problem with Royal Prince An. It was true that he and Grand Tutor Zhuang were at odds, but he was not narrow-minded enough to bicker with a junior. He only treated Royal Prince An the same as everyone else. However, in everyone's eyes, this kind of equal treatment was a kind of contempt towards Royal Prince An. The people who had not gone far all pricked up their ears, wanting to hear what was going on inside. However, Royal Prince An did not say anything and just silently left, not forgetting to close the door for them. "Royal Prince An, what is the relationship between Lord Xiao and Marquis Xian Ping? Why does Marquis Xian Ping seem to be very familiar with him?" On the way back, an official from the Ministry of Revenue asked Royal Prince An, "I am not sure either." Royal Prince An was not familiar with this official from the Ministry of Revenue, so he did not discuss the relationship between Xiao Lulang and Marquis Xian Ping. However, the Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Revenue who had just moved the chair for Marquis Xian Ping spoke. "A few months ago, there was a rumor in the capital that the new top scorer looked very similar to the deceased young Marquis of Zhaodu. Because of this, Marquis Xian Ping even went to..." Halfway through his words, the Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Revenue realized that he had almost made a slip of the tongue. In the end, he was an official and should not criticize the emperor in front of his colleagues and Hanlin Academy officials. He coughed softly and changed the words, "went to see the emperor," to "went to see him specifically." He was talking about the day of Xiao Liulong's court examination. Marquis Xian Ping had gotten up early and rushed to support Xiao Lulang. This matter had once caused an uproar, causing many people to think that Xiao Liulong's top scorer title had come from an improper source and that he had relied on his relationship with Marquis Xian Ping to reach the top of the list. "So it's because Lord Xiao looks like his deceased son," the official of the Ministry of Revenue murmured. Everyone inexplicably ate a melon and more or less understood that Marquis Xian Ping had come to visit Xiao Lulang. How can it be such a coincidence? He didn't get injured earlier or later. When Marquis Xian Ping came, he got injured like this. He even had to carry him all the way back. Another person muttered. These words were just short of saying that Xiao Lulang was scheming and deliberately trying to gain Marquis Xian Ping's sympathy. I really couldn't tell that he was this kind of person. How could I not tell? Have you all forgotten how he has been winning over the villagers these days? His scheming, I really can't catch up to him even if I ride a horse. Sure, lower your voice. Don't let Marquis Xian Ping hear you. Later, you and I won't be able to bear the consequences. Disperse, disperse. Royal Prince and did not participate in their discussion. He knew that Xiao Lulang had gone to the mountains to pick herbs. As for why he got injured and why he met Marquis Xian Ping, he did not know. He went to Wu Yang's side. Tonight, he would probably have to squeeze in with Wu Yang. Inside the hut, Marquis Xian Ping quickly took off Xiao Liulong's top. When he went to take off Xiao Liulong's pants, Xiao Lulang tightened his belt and refused to let him do it. Marquis Xian Ping frowned and clicked his tongue. What's wrong? You go out too. I'll do it myself. Xiao Lulang said. Marquis Xian Ping looked him up and down and said with a chuckle, You fell like this. Do you still have the strength? If he had the strength, he wouldn't have let him take off his top. Right now, he was tightly gripping his belt. In fact, he was using his eyes to refuse. Marquis Xian Ping said, You are my son. What have I not seen of you? When you were young, you ran around the courtyard naked. He looked at his pants. Let me tell you, not only have I seen it, I've also played it. Xiao Lulang, who wanted to be struck by lightning. The wooden bucket and hot water were ready. Marquis Xian Ping didn't call anyone to enter the hut. He brought the large wooden bucket and hot water in himself. Xiao Liulong's undoing of his belt annoyed him. He didn't have the strength and couldn't take it off for a long time. He simply threw him into the hot water. This rain seemed to have extinguished all the heat of the recent days. It brought a hint of the coolness of early autumn. Xiao Liulong's body was cold. It wasn't until he soaked in the hot water that he gradually warmed up. Xiao Lulang soaked in the hut. Marquis Xian Ping went to get water. He planned to take a cold bath and then go back to the carriage to change clothes. He wasn't familiar with this place. He only vaguely remembered that a large group of people had come out of the largest hut. Perhaps they had gone there to get water. He went to the hut that was used as the central room and the office room. Everyone was there. Marquis Gu was also there. The large pile of food that Marquis Gu had brought was also there. The room was filled with the tempting aroma of meat and crispness. Everyone looked at Marquis Xian Ping in astonishment, their faces helpless. Marquis Xian Ping only needed a glance to understand. When a group of people had gathered here, he thought they were discussing some important business. So they were eating and drinking. The Minister of Revenue asked, Does Marquis Xiao want to eat? These were all bought from the capital by Marquis Gu's men. Marquis Xian Ping looked at Marquis Gu in the hut and slightly narrowed his eyes. Everyone was here except for his son-in-law Xiao Lulang. Good, very good. Marquis Gu did not know of the relationship between Marquis Xian Ping and Xiao Lulang. He was wondering why Marquis Xian Ping had mixed up with that poor boy when he met Marquis Xian Ping's frightening gaze. His heart inexplicably thumped. The rain stopped in the latter half of the night. The next day was a sunny day. The morning light shone and the sky was blue. The air was filled with the smell of soil and flowers that had been moistened by the rain. The disaster relief and farming mission had been completed. Everyone packed their bags and planned to eat something before returning to the capital. But no one had expected that when they pushed open the wooden door of the hut, they would be greeted by the mouth-watering aroma of meat buns. Everyone's saliva dripped down. Did they make meat buns today? The villagers know that we are leaving, so they specially made meat buns? Such fragrant meat buns. They were all officials of the capital. Even if they did not come from prominent families, at least they were not greedy for meat buns. But they did not know if it was because they had been vegetarian for too many days, but when they smelled the aroma of meat, they felt that they could not control themselves. No, this is not the aroma of ordinary meat buns. It's zhouji. Their meat buns have the aroma of sesame oil. That's right. It's Zhou Ji's meat buns. Zhou Ji's meat buns were too famous in the capital. They only made 100 steamers a day and they were sold out. Therefore, it was hard to get one even if they lined up. The aroma came from Royal Prince An's hut. Did Marquis Gu send people to buy it again? Marquis Gu is too considerate. He bought so many roast duck and crispy chicken last night. He bought it for Royal Prince An. We are basking in Royal Prince An's glory. It seems that we are basking in Royal Prince An's glory again today. Everyone chatted and couldn't wait to head towards Royal Prince An's hut. But when they reached the door, they were dumbfounded. Royal Prince An was not in the room. There was only Marquis Xian Ping and Xiao Lulang, and a youth in black. The table in front of the two was filled with meat buns. Other than the meat buns, there were wine-fermented meatballs sprinkled with egg drops, scallion pancakes with donkey meat, and braised lamb scorpion that could make the dogs next door cry. These were all Zhou Ji's specialties. Everyone swallowed their saliva. Was it really good to eat so sumptuous so early in the morning? But the three of them could not finish it. He bought so much for them, right? As expected, Xiao Lulang spoke faintly. Did you beat the bun seller to death? Who could finish so many buns? Marquis Xian Ping raised his eyebrows and smiled. Then let's split it, Chong Jing. Chong Jing walked over and took the buns on the table, leaving one steamer for Marquis Xian Ping and Xiao Lulang. Everyone watched as Chong Jing walked towards them with the buns. They were so excited that they could not express themselves. Then, they saw Chong Jing walk past them expressionlessly. Everyone, Chong Jing distributed the buns to the villagers. There was only one left. Chong Jing gave it to the village's big black dog. Thus, everyone who was eating salted vegetables and cornbread experienced what it meant to be worse than a dog. After breakfast, Marquis Xian Ping packed Xiao Lulang and stuffed him into his carriage. Although Xiao Lulang strongly protested, his protests were ineffective. Everyone also sat on the yeoman's carriages. Marquis Gu was surprised to find that the wheels of his carriage had been removed. Marquis Gu exploded on the spot. Where are the wheels of my carriage? Who did it? Everyone sat in the carriage and looked at each other in dismay. Wasn't it obvious who did it? Just ask, who had a higher title than you? No one dared to say anything. It was Royal Prince An who spoke. Marquis Gu, if you don't mind, you can take my carriage back to the capital. That's the only way. Marquis Gu sighed and sat on Royal Prince An's carriage. This son-in-law was still the best. He knew how to help at the crucial moment. Before she could finish her sentence, she heard a loud bang. The wheels of Royal Prince An's carriage were removed as well. No one saw anyone do it. The two wheels seemed to have betrayed him and rolled out of the carriage. The carriage landed heavily on the ground. Marquis Gu's head hit the roof of the carriage and there was a big bruise on his head. The Minister of Revenue did not want to get involved in this mess. However, he was entrusted by someone to take good care of Royal Prince An. But after taking care of Royal Prince An, he could not leave his future father-in-law. He could only invite the two of them into his carriage. Marquis Xian Ping brought Chong Jing out of Xiao Liulong's hut. Chong Jing was holding Xiao Liulong's luggage and the herbs he picked these days. The Minister of Revenue thought for a while and cupped his hands towards Marquis Xian Ping. Marquis Xian Ping, for old lady Zhao's sake, please be merciful. Marquis Xian Ping's mother, old lady Xiao, and the Minister of Revenue's mother were cousins. Strictly speaking, they were cousins. All right. Marquis Xian Ping agreed. The Minister of Revenue secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that old lady Zhao's face was still useful. In the next second, Marquis Xian Ping kicked off the wheels of the Minister of Revenue's carriage. He only said to be merciful. He did not say to be merciful. When it came to bullying people, Marquis Xian Ping was a professional. After this, no one dared to invite Marquis Gu into the carriage anymore. They all left with their tails between their legs. Royal Prince An also wanted to help but could not. He cupped his hands towards Marquis Gu and asked Wu Yang to find the wheels and install them. Then, he returned to the capital alone. Marquis Gu was left alone on the ridge of the field. Behind him was a carriage without wheels. Even the horse had run away. It was as if he was abandoned by the world. Marquis Gu was miserable and miserable. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111350900. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile version reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 358. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. If other people thought that they could safely return to the capital after leaving Marquis Gu behind, then they were too naive. Marquis Xianping blocked their way and took off their wheels one by one. There was no village to the front and no shop to the back. Even if one called for help, the heavens and the earth would not respond. Of course, there were a few people who didn't offend Xiao Lulang, but they also had their wheels taken off by Marquis Xianping. This was helping them, not harming them. Marquis Xianping wouldn't make things difficult for them in the future, but if Marquis Xianping let them go, the people who didn't like Xiao Lulang might make things difficult for them. So, they might as well take them off together. Xiao Lulang didn't know anything about Marquis Xianping blocking their way and bullying them. He didn't sleep well last night and woke up with a slight headache. Not long after getting on the carriage, he fell into a deep sleep. This sleep was so deep that when he woke up, he was already in the capital. He opened his eyes and found himself lying in a room filled with familiarity. He immediately sat up and looked at the mermaid curtain on the bed, then looked at the Zhongnan screen with 6 fans of misty rain on the other side of the bed. He even turned around to look at the pillow he had just slept on. They were all things from his memory. Even the fragrance of fruit and flowers in the room was the same as in his memory. This was the princess's residence. Princess Xianyang and old Madame Xiao didn't have a good relationship. Old Madame Xiao didn't like Princess Xianyang's flesh and blood and was very cold to Xiao Hang. Princess Xianyang brought her son to live in the princess's residence. Although it was connected to the Marquis's residence, Xiao Hang basically didn't go to old Madame Xiao's place. Xiao Lulang lifted the blanket and got out of bed. "Young Marquis, you're awake." A servant girl walked into the room carrying a stack of clothes. He remembered this servant girl. She was called Xu Hua. However, she was much more mature than 4 years ago. He wasn't used to her at first glance, but he could accept her current appearance with a second glance. Her expression and smile were so natural that it was as if he had never left in these 4 years. "Sister Xu Hua. Sister Mizuwa." Another young maidservant stumbled in. It was Magpie, the daughter of a servant in the manor. She was only 8 years old 4 years ago, and now she was 12. When she saw Xiao Lulang, she smiled and bowed. "Young Marquis, you're awake. The Marquis is waiting for you to eat." If Xiao Lulang had not experienced life and death, he would have been dazed by this scene. He looked at them and said, "I'm not the young Marquis, you've got the wrong person. Where are my clothes?" A trace of panic flashed through the eyes of the 2 maidservants. Sure enough, he wasn't dreaming. They were acting. Xiao Lulang let out a sigh of relief. Everything was too familiar. For a moment, he almost thought that the 4 years of wandering among the commoners was just a dream, and that the terrible fire was just a nightmare. If those were all dreams, then the countryside and the Jadewater Alley were also a pipe dream. He slowly sat down on the chair, digesting the lingering fear in his heart. Magpie quickly came forward to pour tea for him. "I'll do it myself." He refused. Magpie hesitantly retreated to the side, looking at Xu Hua with apprehension. Xu Hua shook her head at her, indicating for her not to speak. "My clothes," Xiao Lulang said again. "Yes." Xu Hua went to the wardrobe, opened the door, and found Xiao Liulong's luggage. She secretly glanced at Xiao Lulang several times. Although they looked alike, their temperaments were too different. The young Marquis never had a straight face with them, always talking and laughing. He was a little master that warmed people's hearts. Moreover, the little master's legs were not lame. "You can all leave." Marquis Xianping, who had been listening outside the door, saw that his plan was not working and could only helplessly appear. The two maidservants retreated as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. He did not need to go to Hanlin Academy today, so he found a set of normal clothes to change into. Then he said to Marquis Xianping, "You don't need to test me anymore. I'm not Xiao Heng." Marquis Xianping said, "I'm not testing," Xiao Lulang interrupted him. "Don't think that as long as I'm still Xiao Hang, you can make up for the guilt in your heart. Even if you test me 100 times, 1,000 times, I'm still Xiao Lulang, the illegitimate child of Chen Yun's mother, not the legitimate son of Marquis Xianping." Marquis Xianping's eyes darkened. "Then tell me, is there really someone who looks exactly the same in this world?" "Is it really the same?" Xiao Lulang asked back. Marquis Xianping's gaze fell on his right eye. There was originally a teardrop mole here, but now it was gone. Xiao Lulang said, "Of course, if you just want to use me as a substitute for the young Marquis, then it's up to you." No one could replace Xiao Heng. He did not need a substitute for Xiao Heng. He only wanted Xiao Heng, his son Xiao Heng. These words pierced Marquis Xianping's heart to the point of bleeding. Otherwise, why would he say that he was his son? He knew what words would stab him the most. Xiao Lulang did not say anything else. He picked up his luggage. "Where's my medicine?" "In the courtyard," Marquis Xianping said. Xiao Lulang walked out without looking back. Marquis Xianping looked at his determined and stubborn back and suddenly called out to him, "Don't you want to see your mother?" Xiao Liulong's steps paused. His hand holding his luggage slowly clenched. "I want to see her." "Does she want to see me?" Xiao Lulang left without any hesitation. "Hiss. Little brat." Marquis Xianping's teeth hurt. Steward Lu walked over from the other end of the corridor. He entered the room and asked, "Marquis, the young master still hasn't admitted his identity?" Marquis Xianping's fist slammed on the table and his mouth twitched. "Little stubborn donkey. Is it really the young Marquis? Could there have been a mistake?" Steward Lu asked worriedly. He paused and then muttered, "It doesn't matter if there's a mistake. After all, they are both Marquis's children." Marquis Xianping glared at him. Steward Lu smiled embarrassedly. "I'm joking. Since ancient times, there had been a difference between the direct and concubines. Moreover, this was an illegitimate child. How could he let an illegitimate child mix up the direct bloodline of the Marquis Fu?" Marquis Xianping thoughtfully rubbed his chin. Could it be that only his mother can control him? Chen Yun's mother is already dead. Steward Lu kindly reminded. Marquis Xianping gave him a death stare. "You don't want this month's salary?" Steward Lu's entire body trembled, saying, Marquis, you are talking about the princess. But if the princess can't do anything to him..." Marquis Xianping looked at the disappearing figure at the end of the courtyard, his gaze deep. "Then I will believe that he really isn't Xiao Hang." Xiao Lulang sat in Marquis Xianping's carriage back to Jade Water Alley. When he arrived home, it was already dark. His family did not know that he had returned today, and each went to do their own things. Only Yao She was strolling in the courtyard to digest her food. "Mother." He went forward to greet her. Yao She said in pleasant surprise, "Lulang is back? You haven't eaten yet, right?" Yuya, Hey. Yuya, Put down the work in her hands and walked over. Son-in-law. Yao She ordered. Go make something for son-in-law to eat. Okay. Complied and went to the kitchen. This time, he had gone to the countryside to provide disaster relief and did not bring back any gifts. Other than a basket of medicinal ingredients, there was only some dried fish that the villagers had dried themselves. Xiao Lulang took out the dried fish. What is this? A bag of strange medicinal powder fell out from under the dried fish. This is a kind of dried flower powder. It was given by an auntie. Apparently, it can be used as rouge. It was Uncle Zhang's family's auntie. After learning that he was married, she gave him this bag of dried flower powder. Naturally, this could not compare to the rouge from the rouge shop, but it was a bit of goodwill from the villagers, so he accepted it. Yao She said, Jiao Jiao does not need it now. Yao She's meaning was that Gu Jiao had a chastity mark on her face and did not like to dress up. In the future, when the chastity mark was gone, perhaps she would like to be beautiful herself. Xiao Lulang misunderstood and thought that Yao She was saying that Gu Jiao was ugly. He said, she does not need it to be beautiful. Yao She was stunned. Son-in-law was praising her daughter for being beautiful? Although she also felt that her daughter was beautiful, she was still Jiao Jiao's mother. Naturally, a mother would think that her daughter was beautiful. Xiao Liulong's serious appearance made Yao She laugh. The young couple had been married for so long. Although they had always lived in separate rooms, they had never said that they had not consummated their marriage. In large families, married couples lived in separate courtyards. In order to not affect the men's studies, many scholars lived in separate rooms. Thus, if it were not for this birthmark, the young couple's relationship would not have aroused any suspicion. Yao She had originally planned to continue to pretend that she did not know, but now that it had been brought up, Yao She felt that perhaps telling her son-in-law would not be a problem. At the very least, her son-in-law had seriously refuted her. This meant that in his heart, he did not dislike her daughter's appearance. He treated Jiao Jiao with sincerity. What was there that was not worth knowing the truth? Actually, Yao She cleared her throat and resisted the awkwardness in her heart. She said, the mark on Jiao Jiao's face is not a birthmark. It is a chastity mark. Bang! A figure fell down from the courtyard wall. Dong! A person knocked into the doorway and staggered until he hit the door. The former was Gu Changfeng. The latter was Gu Chongqing. This was not the end. There was a clatter at the door, followed by a clatter. Surprisingly, the copper-candied fruit box in Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand had fallen to the ground. The old chancellor, who was standing at the newly opened door between the two residences, did not know whether to enter or leave. He had come to deliver some brown sugar glutinous rice cake to Zhuang Jin's. How did he hear this kind of thing? The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964286/111347859. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.